Chapter 9:36. Hiding in the mountains in the south of Xia country. This was in line with one of the possibilities that Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su had guessed before. However, Wang Sheng could not be completely sure based on the confession of a killer. Death warriors didn't necessarily have to be nurtured in the headquarters in the first place. When the Shi family was attacked by the Gan family's men of sacrifice, they had been living in the Shi family's territory. In addition, the men of sacrifice who tried to assassinate Wang Sheng during the construction of the first camp in the Land of Thousand Despair were craftsmen recruited by the imperial treasury. They had lived there for more than 10 years, so that they would not have anything to do with the Gan family. Based on this consideration, Bao Qing Yutang's men of sacrifice might not be in the real base camp of Bao Qing Yutang. If you want to know the details, he had to wait for the news from the Xia family. After comparing the two, he should be able to know more or less. Anyway, there was less than 1 day left for the Xia family, so he did not have to wait too long. Sure enough, Aki was happy a little too early. When Wang Sheng got the complete confession and read it, he knew that the target of the men of sacrifice might not be the real base camp of Bao Qing Yutang. Because the population of the relocation was less than 200, it might just be the relocation of a training camp for the men of sacrifice, which had little to do with Bao Qing Yutang. However, it was not completely without any gains. From the confession, Wang Sheng knew that there were at least 5 barbarians living in the mountains, and they were unimaginably powerful. This was the conclusion that the men of sacrifice came to after coming into contact with the barbarians. The unique geographical conditions and harsh living conditions made the barbarians living in the mountains in the south very difficult, which also led to the survival of the barbarians being very powerful. In the words of the death warriors themselves, even if they were not gifted in cultivation, they could still easily kill an ordinary first or second stage cultivator by relying on their strong physique. In addition, because the barbarians had always lived in the primitive forest that had almost no roads, they were extremely familiar with the life in the forest. They were even more adapted to the forest than other places. When everyone heard this, the image that appeared in everyone's mind was Changsheng, Duke Wang Sheng. Wasn't Wang Sheng a barbarian who descended from the sky? At the same time, he had stirred up a storm when he was still a nobody. He had entered the grounds of Thousand Despair alone and killed hundreds of experts who were chasing after him. Among them, there were more than 10 fifth-degree realm experts, descending from the sky on a flying mount. Was there no connection between these two? Adapting to life in the jungle and traversing through the grounds of despair alone, was this a coincidence? Relying on his valiant physique to kill first and second stage realm cultivators was simply a portrayal of Wang Sheng. When Wang Sheng arrived at the training room, everyone looked at Wang Sheng with a strange look. The curiosity in Mei and Rose's eyes was not concealed at all. "Kid, are you also from the Shanwei region in the south?" The girls were too embarrassed to ask, and the guards did not dare to ask. The only one who could ask this question without any scruples was old Taoist Ling Su. "No," Wang Sheng replied firmly. "Damn it, I'm a barbarian? I'm a decent and civilized person who is thousands of years more advanced than your society. You're the barbarians." Really, old Taoist Ling Su's disbelief was practically written all over his face as he asked in an exaggerated manner. "Of course," Wang Sheng continued to answer without hesitation. "Then where are you from?" Old Taoist Ling Su asked curiously. Everyone pricked up their ears, waiting for Wang Sheng's answer. This was a big secret, and everyone was curious about it. "Why do you care?" Wang Sheng gave old Taoist Ling Su the middle finger without hesitation. This was the secret between Wang Sheng and the girl in his dream. How could he tell others? Everyone sighed regretfully. They finally had such a great opportunity, but Wang Sheng refused to divulge it so shamelessly. "Did you ask them about their plan?" Wang Sheng asked again. He didn't have time to read through the confession, so he asked directly, was the assassination premeditated or did it happen out of the blue? "How many people do they have in the capital?" Mayor shook her head directly. If it was not necessary, the men of sacrifice would basically have one-way contact, so it was impossible to know what other arrangements they had. Wang Sheng quickly went through the statements, and had a rough idea of what was going on. The killer was ordered to kill Wang Sheng when Old Master Zhu left the capital. He had been looking for an opportunity these days. The killer was a lone traveler who usually lived near the Qiu family, so he could pretend to be Elder Qiu. There should be at least one person in the Qiu family who sent him the news. Other than that, there was no other concern. The only clue was at Shan Yue's side, but Shan Yue was so big. This guy even rode a flying mount when he went in and out, so he did not know where his nest was. Moreover, the lair he mentioned was only a village in a valley in the mountains that could accommodate about 1,000 people. It could not possibly be the real base of Bayo Kinjia Hall. It could be said that this clue was basically broken. He was just a man of sacrifice who had not lived in a real nest. At most, he knew that there was a problem at Shan Yue's side, and that Bao Qing Yutang had not given up on the idea of finding a chance to kill Wang Sheng. The rest was basically useless. All right, there was one more thing. He had confirmed that the other party really had a flying mount. It was a big bird in the 7th stage realm. He did not know how Bao Qing Yutang's men caught it and tamed it. Sell this person. The killer was useless to Wang Sheng. He was already crippled. Even if he was cured, he would still be a cripple. Wang Sheng directly asked Mei to get rid of him. No matter if it's the royal family, Qiu family, or other families, whoever is interested, whoever is willing to fork out gold coins, hand him over to them. Mei was the best at this kind of thing. She immediately ran out in high spirits to do it. No matter who Mei gave him to, no matter which family, they would owe Wang Sheng a favor. Wang Sheng had not thought of how to reply to Qiu family's cooperation. Xia family should send the investigation results over tomorrow. Combining the killer's confession, they should be able to deduce more things. For the following period of time, Wang Sheng basically recuperated quietly to speed up the recovery of his internal injuries. Wang Sheng had a premonition that after Xia family's news came, no matter what, he would have to make a trip out of Qing City. No matter if it was for himself or for those villagers who had been massacred, Wang Sheng needed to make this trip. This day was peaceful and there was no more news. But the news of Wang Sheng being assassinated in his residence was spread out along with Mei Er's sale of that killer. As expected, Qiu family offered the highest price to bring that killer away. The next morning, at the appointed time, Xia family's third elder came to Wang Sheng's residence, bringing the Xia family's investigation results. Chapter 9:37. That's it. Wang Sheng frowned and asked incredulously after listening to the third elder of the Xia family. That's it. The third elder of the Xia family said to Wang Sheng with a wry smile. The reason why some members of the Xia family wanted to kill Aki had been reported to the Xia kingdom by the third elder. Today, the Xia kingdom finally had an answer. It was simple. One of the elders had secretly accepted Bao Qing Yutang's offer and helped Bao Qing Yutang transfer Bao Qing Yutang's assets through the Xia family's channels. Under his protection, he had allowed Bao Qing Yutang's troops to pass through the Xia kingdom and enter the mountains in the south. Aki's friend was one of the executors. When he told Aki about this, Bao Qing Yutang's transfer operation had already reached its final stage. However, because Bao Qing Yutang's transfer of assets was too big, Bao Qing Yutang didn't want anyone to find out. Therefore, he gave the elder of the Xia family a shocking reward. Therefore, the elder of the Xia family had sent assassins to kill Aki. It sounded simple, and the logic behind it made sense. After all, Bao Qing Yutang's transfer of assets had been so successful. He had accomplished such a big and secretive thing under the noses of all parties. If any information was leaked, they would be consigned to eternal damnation. Therefore, they had no choice but to be cautious. However, if this was the result of the investigation, the Xia family was too perfunctory. Was this the result of Aki's pursuit in a land of thousand despair for more than half a month? The Xia family will compensate the madam for the grievances she has suffered. The third elder of the Xia family said, as he presented a gift list with both hands. This was the compensation for Aki. The gift had already been delivered to the gatekeeper's courtyard outside, waiting to be received. The value of the gift was definitely not cheap. If something that could be sent into the Duke's mansion was just a local product of the Xia kingdom, it would be laughed at by the whole world. In terms of value, It could be said to be enough to compensate Qi for the fright he had suffered. However, Wang Sheng felt that Xia's investigation was a little perfunctory. In fact, Bao Qing Yutang fled into the mountains, didn't he? Wang Sheng followed up on Third Elder Xia's words with a question of his own. The assassin I met yesterday also said that he came from the Yu Mountains. How did Bao Qing Yu Hall gain a foothold there? I'm ashamed to say that the Xia family contributed a lot in this matter. Although the third elder of the Xia kingdom said that he was ashamed, there was no shame on his face at all. There was only regret on his face. That elder not only sent people to help transfer the property in the Xia kingdom, but also sent a few experts into the mountains to help fight against the barbarians. They helped for more than a month and only retreated after they gained a firm foothold. During this period, they also lost two legendary experts. All for the sake of obtaining benefits for others. How is the elder you mentioned now? Wang Sheng asked out of curiosity. This fellow should be the mastermind behind the pursuit of Aki. How could the mastermind be unscathed? He has been arrested by the king and is still being interrogated about what he did and what he did not say. Elder Xia seemed to feel sorry for the elder. He is already an elder and an important minister of Xia Kingdom. As long as he makes more contributions to Xia Kingdom, he will definitely not miss the next marquee. What a pity. What a mistake. Wang Sheng finally understood. When Elder Xia mentioned the next marquee, Wang Sheng completely understood. The last time Victorious Return was divided up, Xia had received a piece of their territory and an imperial edict with the names of the marquises conferred on them. Whoever filled in the name would be the marquis. This was a reward for the Tang, Xia, and Feng kingdoms. Xia Kingdom definitely gave the marquis title to someone else. Regardless of who it was, that Elder Xia didn't have a share. As a result, that Elder Xia's heart became unbalanced. It just so happened that Bao Qing Yutang came knocking on his door at this time. He was immediately moved and began to help Bao Qing Yutang plan a transfer. That was how Bao Qing Yutang suddenly disappeared. No matter how hard anyone tried, they couldn't find any traces of him. With one country helping to conceal it, it would be strange if other countries could find out in a short period of time. Everything made sense now. When Third Elder Xia bid farewell, he apologized profusely. That Elder Xia knew too many things at the moment and needed to be interrogated in detail. Therefore, his head needed to be placed on his neck for the time being. Once everything was clarified, Xia Kingdom would offer the Elder Xia's head to Madame Aki, thoroughly appeasing her anger. That's it. Mayor, Rosa, and Aki listened to Wang Sheng's explanation. It was the same as what Wang Sheng had heard at the beginning. They all felt that Xia Kingdom was being perfunctory. That's it. What else could Wang Sheng say to Mayor and the others? He could only bitterly smile. Fortunately, they gave me compensation. Achi, these are all yours. With that said, he handed over the list of gifts that Third Elder Xia had brought over. As soon as Mayor saw the list of gifts, her eyes immediately widened. She immediately urged Aki to take the list and check it. Seventh sister, take a look, see if they're sincere. Wang Sheng had just said that this was the compensation given to Aki by the Xia family, so it belonged to Aki. Mayor did not want to snatch Aki's things. She just kept urging her to take a look. After all, it was the compensation of a country. The three women soon took the list and shouted to see the real thing. Only Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su were left here. They looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Old Taoist Ling Su and Wang Sheng walked together to the exercise room. On the way, the old Taoist asked, "Do you believe what Xia Kingdom said?" "I believe half of it," Wang Sheng said as he walked. "I always feel that some things are not completely true." "Which half?" the old Taoist asked again. "It should be true that Xia Kingdom helped Bao Qing Yutang transfer his property. It is also true that they sent experts to help Bao Qing Yutang take root in the Shanyu land. But if you say that it was only because of an elder's imbalance, no one will believe it." Wang Sheng laughed. "An elder can hide it from the whole Xia Kingdom and make Xia Kingdom the path for Bao Qing Yutang. How is that possible? Do you think this is the intention of the king of Xia Kingdom?" The old Taoist did not seem to think about this. He had never cared about these political things. Instead, he needed Wang Sheng's analysis in this aspect. It is 80% possible. Wang Sheng nodded and said, they even sent experts to help Bao Qin Yutang gain a foothold and suppress the barbarians. It is just that their intention was not to help. Got it. The old Taoist was not a fool. It would not make sense if he still did not understand when Wang Sheng had made it so clear. Maybe the Xia family also underestimated the hidden strength of Bao Qin Yutang. They wanted to swallow Bao Qin Yutang up, but suddenly Bao Qin Yutang got out of control. Wang Sheng guessed, they're probably having a headache now. Chapter 9:38. Even the old Taoist Ling Su, who was not interested in this kind of intrigue, understood what Wang Sheng meant. The Xia family wanted to annex Bao Qin Yutang and take the opportunity to annex the land of mountains, which was the retreat that Bao Qin Yutang had prepared. However, Bao Qin Yutang was one step ahead of them. Not only did he take advantage of the Xia family, but he also kicked the Xia family away. The Xia family had suffered a huge loss, yet they could not voice their bitterness. They could only bite their teeth and swallow the blood, knowing that they were suffering. Old Taoist, have you been to the land of mountains? Wang Sheng asked the old Taoist Ling Su. The old Taoist had traveled almost all over the world when he was young. Maybe he had been to the land of mountains. I've been to the edge. The old Taoist answered honestly, I've seen a group of uncivilized barbarians who eat raw meat and drink blood. I found it boring, so I left. After saying that, he seemed to realize something and added, I'm not talking about you. Wang Sheng curled his lips and gave the old Taoist Ling Su the middle finger in his heart again. You are the barbarians. How big is the land of mountains? Wang Sheng asked again. It's not small, but the terrain is too dangerous. There are many barbarian tribes there, including many masters. There's a large jungle and a big river between them. Those barbarians won't come over, and normal people won't go there either. It's an uncivilized land, the old Taoist concluded. In short, it was not suitable for normal people to live in. It was not worth it to fight for territory with the powerful barbarians. It was better to maintain the status quo and live in peace. In short, there was nothing there that was worth fighting for. Without enough benefits, who would risk their lives to do these things? There was a contrary example, the land of thousand devastations. It was also extremely dangerous, even more so than the land of mountains. However, it contained big secrets and benefits. All parties wanted a Russian now. That was the difference. I have to go take a look. Now that he had received the news, whether it was for himself or for the villagers who were killed, Wang Sheng had to go and take a look. Let's go together. Old Taoist Ling Su nodded indifferently. Let's go in and have a look. What is it that can make Bao Qin Yutang so interested that he move his family? If they went to a place like this, it would not be good to have more people. On the contrary, it was Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su who had the most practical strategy of elite troops. Moreover, their main objective was to scout, not to annihilate. 2 people were enough. I want to go too. At the family meeting in the evening, when Wang Sheng told the girls about his plans, Meyer and Rosa were fine. They were used to Wang Sheng's actions and arrangements. However, Aki couldn't sit still and asked to tag along. Everyone's eyes were focused on Aki. Although Aki was not wearing the Alice Combat suit designed by Wang Sheng, she still had the big braid on her head and was wearing a tight sportswear. When everyone's eyes were focused on her, Aki blushed again. Aki didn't know what was wrong with her. In the Duke's mansion in the capital, Aki blushed the most. Whether it was in front of Wang Sheng or Meyer and Rosa, she was always the same. She didn't look like an all-powerful killer at all. She was clearly a little wife who had never seen the world. This was a family meeting. There were only 4 people, Wang Sheng, Meyer, Rosa, and Aki. At most, there were some personal maids of the girls. There were no outsiders. Even if she blushed, Aki still insisted. Are you serious? Wang Sheng looked at Aki and asked seriously. Aki nodded. She didn't say anything, but her eyes were filled with determination. It's very dangerous, Wang Sheng warned. 2 of the Xia family's legendary experts have died in there. More dangerous than the ground of despair? Aki didn't care. Aki had entered the ground of despair countless times. How could the mountains be more dangerous than the ground of despair? That's not enough. Wang Sheng directly shook his head. Aki's cultivation was higher than Wang Sheng's in the past. However, as a death warrior, she didn't receive much training. Her soul was only at the 6-star realm. Her current cultivation was only at the late stage of the 6th realm. With this cultivation, Aki could be considered to be very experienced to be able to survive in the outskirts of the ground of despair. However, it wasn't enough to deal with the barbarians. I was thrown into the forests of the mountains when I was 9 years old. There were a total of 4 times. Those who walked out alive were kept as death warriors. After that, I entered the mountains more than 10 times for training. Aki looked at Wang Sheng stubbornly. Is this reason enough? Aki once said that she was a death warrior and was thrown into the forest to survive. However, she didn't say where it was. Only now did Wang Sheng know that it was the forests of the mountains that were close to the Xia kingdom. If that was the case, then Aki would be very useful. Although Wang Sheng was also an expert in the forest, he couldn't be led by someone who was familiar with the local terrain. Aki had honed herself there. With her around, it could save Wang Sheng a lot of time. At least she should know the distribution of the barbarians. Wang Sheng didn't need to spend so much effort to find a needle in a haystack. Looking at Aki's stubborn face, Wang Sheng nodded after a while. Okay, but you have to wait until your equipment is ready. Aki instantly smiled. The stubborn expression on her face was swept away and turned into a young girl's happiness. She jumped up immediately. The last time Aki and Wang Sheng went out together was in the land of Thousand Despair. That was also the only time. This time, she could go with Wang Sheng again. Mayer and Rosa were a little jealous. However, they knew their position. They weren't the kind of people who fought and killed. Moreover, they were responsible for a lot of things. On the contrary, it was not as convenient as Aki. While Wang Sheng was discussing with the 3 women at home, the news in the Xia kingdom was released. An elder of the Xia family coveted Bao Qing Yutang's huge reward and made it convenient for Bao Qing Yutang to transfer his property. He sent Bao Qing Yutang's men to the mountains in the south of the Xia kingdom. The assassin had already confessed that he came from mountains. Qiu State had obtained first-hand information by buying the assassin. Now, the news released by the Xia family further confirmed this point. It was logical and common sense. The mountains were indeed a place that no forces had touched. It was no wonder that no one could find Bao Qing Yutang if he was hiding there. In particular, there were barbarians in the mountains. Those guys were mysterious and unpredictable. As long as there were 1 or 2 people like Wang Sheng, it was not impossible for them to conquer a few flying mounts. It could be said that all the clues pointed to the mountains. Bao Qing Yutang should be hiding there. This was especially so when Wang Sheng, old Taoist Ling Su, and Achi left the capital early the next morning, heading straight for the south. This piece of news was further confirmed. All parties could not sit still any longer. They all sent people to the mountains. Chapter 9:39. In the eyes of all the forces, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su had gone to the south together. Obviously, their goal was the Shanhua land, which was the place they were most concerned about. However, among the many women in the capital, the one who was most concerned about was Aki, who was by Wang Sheng's side. To be exact, it was the Alice suit worn by Aki, who was by Wang Sheng's side. The tight suit, waistcoat, and leather boots vividly displayed Aki's exquisite figure. A pair of flawless long legs were presented in front of everyone. Coupled with the shiny leather of the suit, it directly attracted the attention of all the women. Laura's long braid made Aki look capable, which the women in the capital had never seen before. Moreover, it pointed out an unprecedented path for all the women in the capital. It must be known that Aki didn't wear any jewelry on her head. The only accessories she had were the 2 leather dagger sheaths tied to her thighs. This was Wang Sheng's bad taste. Since he didn't have Laura's thigh holsters, he put 2 dagger sheaths on her thighs to make up for this small shortcoming. At the same time, it also embellished the monotonous tight suit. The most amazing thing was the leather mask that covered Aki's face. It was the same shape as Wang Sheng's hard mask, but it was made of soft leather. It had enough protection and was breathable. Of course, the most important function was to cover Aki's pretty face, only revealing a pair of beautiful big eyes. That kind of mysterious temptation made everyone who saw it fall head over heels. Yes, everyone, including the spies of the major forces. Regardless of gender or age, everyone was captivated by Aqi's extremely alluring and mysterious combat suit. At the same time, it was extremely daring to challenge everyone's bottom line. From the moment Wang Sheng's trio appeared until they disappeared from everyone's line of sight, there were still countless people who stood dumbfounded on the spot. Their mouths were wide open, and they were as shocked as wooden statues. The people in the capital had been baptized by the Dream Workshop's clothes for a long time. The last time Uncle Li came, the two beautiful twin killers beside him were famous for wearing the clothes, which had caused a sensation. Later, the top girls of the major brothels also competed to wear the Dream Workshop's clothes. It could be said that the Dream Workshop's brand had been deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Now that they saw another extremely bold and mysterious style of clothing, almost all the women's hearts were moved. Many people dared to wear such tight clothes, but who would have thought that a small mask could bring such a mysterious attraction to people? It made people want to see what kind of stunning face was under those beautiful eyes. What surprised everyone even more was that not only was Aki wearing a mask, but even Marquis Wang Sheng was wearing a mask that was almost exactly the same as the beautiful woman's face. The only difference was that the color was slightly different. Wang Sheng, on the other hand, was wearing an extremely valiant combat suit. The suit on his upper body was stretched tight by Wang Sheng's bulging muscles, and it was the same on his legs. This also caused the two of them to look like a couple's outfit, which was very eye-catching. The man was tall and muscular, while the woman was small and exquisite with slender and long legs. No matter how one looked at them, they gave people a sense of visual opposites. As for the old Taoist next to them, who was he? Apart from those who knew the identity of old Taoist Ling Su and understood how terrifying the old Taoist was, the others who only paid attention to the beautiful clothes of the gorgeous Wang Sheng and the old Taoist next to Aki did not know who they were. The three of them had disappeared from everyone's sight, but a nuclear bomb had been dropped on the capital. The beautiful women only saw the temptation of Aki's clothes. The men saw the mystery that Aki brought to them, and the real experts had already seen how suitable Aki's clothes were for combat. Countless messenger birds began to spread the news of Wang Sheng's departure. However, the noble ladies in the capital swarmed towards the dream house like a swarm of bees. With such a trendy outfit, they wanted to buy it as soon as possible and wear it. That stinky man at home would fall head over heels in love with her. How could Mayer and Rosa let go of such a great opportunity? The way Wang Sheng and Aki swaggered away was in itself an advertisement. So many distinguished guests of the Dream House were informed as soon as they entered the Dream House that there would be a press conference for a new series, the Battle of Charm series. As soon as they heard the name, they knew what it was. The distinguished guests entered the colorful house with great joy, only to find that there was more than one surprise. The Alice suit that Aki was wearing, the Black Widow suit that Wang Sheng had thought of, the Legends of the Night series, the Laura Hot Pants suit, and the Catwoman suit, all took turns to appear. They were of different colors and styles, and most importantly, each suit came with a different mask. There were masks, and everything that one could think of. The combination was exceptionally pleasing to the eyes. The supermodels of the Dream House walked out in different outfits, and from time to time, they would strike a few heroic poses. Some of them even had short daggers or other short weapons that were used as accessories. All the guests were dazzled, and they swarmed to the beauty house like a swarm of bees. The Battle of Charm series was well prepared this time. There were two different types for each style. One could only be seen, and it was just for show. Apart from a ventilation formation, everything else focused on sexiness and beauty. This type could be bought on the spot. The other type was used for real combat. It was made from the skin of a high-level demon beast, and it had all sorts of protective concealment formations. The effect of wearing it was even better than a protective suit. This type could not be picked up on the spot. It could only be measured by the people of the dream house on the spot, and then customized for each person who placed an order. After all, it was a piece of defensive equipment used for combat, and the most important factor was that it could not interfere with combat. Only a suit that was truly customized could achieve such an effect. Wang Sheng, Aki, and old Taoist Ling Su, who had just left the city, had no idea that the Dream House had earned hundreds of millions of gold coins from the Battle of Charm series in just one morning. Almost every guest who arrived bought a full set of sexy suits that cost 30,000 gold coins. They were already rubbing their palms and practicing their heroic movements in the Dream House, preparing to use the weapons in the suits to assassinate the stinky man at home at night. What surprised Wang Sheng, Meyer, and Rosa even more was that a group of female experts who used to look down on the Dream House had actually asked someone to bring them into the Dream House. It was also that they, who were qualified to buy a suit, could customize a combat suit like Aki's. The Battle of Charm series was on fire. Then, as they walked, she explained some forests are actually growing in the water. It's a paradise for some monsters. Even the barbarians don't dare to set foot there. Let's go to the nearest barbarian tribe to take a look. Wang Sheng had decided their next destination with a single sentence. Achi had no objections. He immediately identified the direction, then took out a machete and led the way. Be it Wang Sheng or old Taoist Ling Su, they were very familiar with the 9 symbolic words. It was a piece of cake for them to avoid all kinds of snakes, insects, rats, and ants in the area that the 3 of them passed through. Aki was obviously aware of this. Therefore, she enjoyed the fact that there was no interference at all. She didn't even need to be vigilant of her surroundings. Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su took care of this matter. At least 5 kilometers away from an inhabited valley, Wang Sheng, Aki, and old Taoist Ling Su stood on the top branch of the tallest tree at the top of the mountain. Wang Sheng held a scope in his hand and carefully observed the barbarian tribe. Logically speaking, the magnification of the scope could only allow Wang Sheng to see up to 2,500 meters. However, Wang Sheng's vision had been strengthened, so he could clearly see the valley that was 5 kilometers away. At this distance, Wang Sheng could observe unscrupulously and didn't have to worry about being discovered by anyone in the valley. The valley was large enough for thousands of people to live in. Or rather, it shouldn't be called a valley. It was a flat land surrounded by several mountains. The environment was surprisingly good, and there was even a river on one side. It was enough to ensure the survival of thousands of people. From Wang Sheng's point of view, these barbarians had gone far beyond the level of eating raw meat and drinking blood. They were no longer the uncivilized people that old Taoist Ling, Su, and Aki described. At least, through Wang Sheng's scope, those barbarians were not only wearing fur but also some cloth. They were even ready-made clothes. The tools they used were no longer simple tools like tree trunks and stones. At least, Wang Sheng saw exquisite knives, bows, and arrows. Baoqing Yutang's people have been here, Wang Sheng said with certainty as he put down the scope. Old Taoist Ling Su's eyes were half closed, as if he was resting. However, Aki's eyes were fixed on the scope. It was as if there was a small hand in her eyes that wanted to see what was inside. Wang Sheng smiled and handed the scope to Aki. He grabbed her little hand and taught her how to use it. Even so, Aki's hand trembled when she saw the scenery in the distance through the scope. She almost dropped the scope. Fortunately, Wang Sheng had expected it. He reached out and caught it, then handed it to Aki. Old Taoist Ling Su had already played with the scope when Wang Sheng was building the heavy sniper crossbow, so he wasn't curious at all. However, he was curious as to why Wang Sheng said that. You saw Baoqing Yutang's people? The old Taoist was puzzled and asked, Why do you say that? I saw Baoqing Yutang's things, Wang Sheng replied with a smile. Wang Sheng seemed to be deep in thought when he saw those things. When the old Taoist returned with the scope after looking for a long time, he asked, Didn't the Xia family think about conquering these barbarians in the past? Why not? Aki pursed her lips and replied, they tried hundreds of years ago. Many people died, but they didn't find anything. Did you really see Bao Qing Yutang's things? Aki, an old Taoist Ling Su's eyesight wasn't good enough for them to see clearly through the scope from 5 kilometers away, so they asked curiously, what method did the Xia family use? Wang Sheng asked again. What other method could it be? Aki looked at Wang Sheng and asked in puzzlement, kill. Is there any other method? Old Taoist Ling Su was also puzzled. He looked at Wang Sheng, as if waiting for Wang Sheng to answer. No wonder Bao Qing Yutang took advantage of the loophole. Wang Sheng let out a long sigh. Sure enough, these people who claimed to be above the masses were the barbarians. They only knew how to kill to conquer a group of barbarians. Didn't they know that there was another method called economic warfare? If he explained it to Aki and old Taoist Ling Su now, they probably wouldn't understand. Wang Sheng didn't bother to explain. He just picked up the scope again and looked over there. Looking at the old Taoist swearing that when he was young, he was satisfied with eating raw meat and drinking blood, and now he was proficient in using those tools and weapons, Wang Sheng realized that Bao Qing Yutang might have really made big news this time. Chapter 9:41. Be it the members of the Xia family or other people, the first thing that came to their minds when they thought of conquering and satisfying the barbarians was to kill them. They wanted to use the terrifying massacre to subdue the uncivilized barbarians and make them submit. Little did they know that the more oppressive they were, the harder it was to convince the people. People in normal society would think of ways to take revenge, not to mention those barbarians. It was impossible to subdue these barbarians by killing. Instead, it would cause them to retaliate. After hundreds of years, not only did the Xia family and another family fail to subdue these barbarians, but they also lost a lot of them. In the end, they could only give up. After all, these barbarians had no intention of expanding their territory, so they lived in harmony. Bao Qing Yutang was a businessman. They knew how to subdue these uncivilized barbarians by roping them in. As long as they were given a little more benefits, those barbarians would get unprecedented material enjoyment, unprecedented convenience, and unprecedented opportunities to receive education. How could they not show goodwill to Bao Qing Yuhal? On one side, they were suppressed by killing, and on the other side, they were bribed. Why would these barbarians, who were not smart enough, have a headache choosing between them? In other words, the barbarians that the Xia family failed to subdue after hundreds of years of killing were easily bribed by Bao Qing Yutang with something that was not even half the value of the equipment used by the experts of the Xia family. The barbarians became Bao Qing Yutang's population in the Yushan land. The Yushan land was also easily occupied by Bao Qing Yutang. Let's go check out the other tribe. Wang Sheng did not disturb that tribe. He let Aki lead the way to the territory of the other tribe. Aki had lived in Yushan land for at least a few years since she was young. She knew 5 barbarian tribes. This one was the closest to the periphery. If they wanted to go to the other tribe, they would have to go deeper. Anyway, this place was not as dangerous as the land of Thousand Despair. The 3 of them stealthily bypassed this tribe and went straight to the second one. The second tribe had a larger population than the first one. It had more than 10,000 people. Moreover, the second tribe was no longer a simple and crude settlement. It had already built a city. This time, they were observing from a closer distance. Aki, an old Taoist Ling Su, could see it clearly. It couldn't be helped. Such a huge city could be seen with the naked eye even from afar. Both of them had ugly expressions on their faces. The barbarian race had already begun to build a city. What did this mean? Had Bao Qing Yutang already controlled the barbarians to such an extent? By the time they saw the third barbarian tribe, the trio's conjecture had become a reality. The third barbarian tribe had also built a city. What was even more exaggerated was that this tribe had already started to open up a path in the forest. Looking at the direction of the path, it was obvious that it led to 4 different directions. Apart from one leading to the previous city, there were 3 other directions, but no one knew where they led. Old Taoist, let's go into the city tonight and see what level of experts there are. Wang Xing didn't need to look any further. He could tell just by looking at the city what Bao Qing Yutang had done here. From the looks of it, they were clearly planning to build a vassal state in the Mountain Yu land. Bao Qing Yutang had gone too far this time. It was so big that it shocked everyone. The old Taoist didn't say anything. He just nodded. The three of them rested in a secret place in the forest. They ate, drank, went to the toilet, and took turns to cultivate. They waited until nightfall. It wasn't until after midnight that the old Taoist quietly set off for the big city. He didn't come back until dawn, bringing back an unconscious young barbarian. The three of them didn't dare to stay any longer. As soon as the old Taoist returned, Wang Sheng carried the young barbarian brought back by the old Taoist and quickly left the place where they were resting. After finding a place far enough from the city and hidden enough, Wang Sheng put down the barbarian and began to observe. The young barbarian was young. He had dyed a few strange patterns on his face, neck, and arms with some unknown plant dye. Two of the colors were very similar to the camouflage paint that Wang Sheng had smeared on his face in the past. It was no wonder that when he appeared in front of Song Yin, both the Song family and the Dai family said that Wang Sheng was a barbarian. The barbarian's muscles were very strong. It could be seen just by looking at them. Wang Sheng nodded and asked the old Taoist, "What's the situation inside? What's his cultivation now?" "It's not good." The old Taoist's expression was very solemn when he said these three words. It made Aki a little nervous. The situation inside must be very worrying for the old Taoist to show such an expression. In the past, those barbarians did not know how to cultivate deeply. They all relied on some shallow cultivation methods, relying on their body's instincts and the instincts of their soul to increase their strength. The old Taoist said the reason why it was not good, but now they have begun to cultivate all kinds of cultivation methods. Although they aren't the secret cultivation methods of the major clans, they are still orthodox cultivation methods. Wang Xing nodded. A barbarian tribe that attacked each other was not scary, but a barbarian tribe that cultivated in an organized and disciplined way was the most terrifying. What level is your cultivation base at? Wang Xing couldn't help but ask. If they had just started cultivating and their cultivation was not high, the threat was not very high. There are many legendary experts. During this period of time, everyone's cultivation speed has increased, and it has also affected this place. The old Taoist still shook his head. Although there are no secret cultivation methods of the big families, it is these common things that are very suitable for these barbarians to cultivate. Their cultivation has increased a lot in a short period of time, and almost all of the barbarians have a good soul, so there's a lot of room for improvement. If it wasn't for the fact that I don't believe that you are from this place, I would definitely suspect that you are from this place. The old Taoist Ling Su was still praising. You haven't gone in to take a look. Don't think that they're all barbarians. Each of them has amazing cultivation qualifications. Why didn't I find such a good method before? If I had opened the Laojun temple here earlier, how could there be a chance for Bao Qing Yutang? What about this one? Wang Sheng pointed to the young barbarian, who was still in a coma, and asked. He has just started cultivating. It has not been more than half a year, but he is already in the late stage of the first stage. The old Taoist Ling Su replied. He is cultivating by looking at the cultivation method, so he should be able to understand our words. It is good to bring him out for questioning. Don't tell me you didn't bring the truth pill. Of course, Wang Sheng brought the truth pill with him everywhere he went. For Wang Sheng, who had just arrived in this world, one pill was enough to make him go bankrupt and fall into a huge debt. But now, it was just one of the supplements that he brought with him. The old Taoist Ling Su used some unknown method to wake the barbarian up. The barbarian was about to jump up when he was held down by Wang Sheng with one hand and forced to feed him a truth pill. Then, the three of them waited quietly for the pill to take effect. Chapter 942. Even a legendary expert could not resist the truth pill. How could a barbarian in the late stage of the first realm resist it? In less than 5 minutes, the young barbarian had entered the state of answering every question. Achi and old Taoist Ling Su didn't know the techniques of interrogation. Even if they had the truth pill, they wouldn't be able to lead the barbarian to speak. Achi had rashly asked, "How many legendary experts do your tribe have?" This young barbarian was basically in a dumbfounded state, unable to answer. This made Achi feel very embarrassed. In the end, it was Wang Sheng's turn. Wang Sheng's experience in interrogation was a scientific method developed by countless psychologists and medical experts on Earth. Even without the truth pill, the barbarian might not be able to resist for a few days, let alone with the help of the truth pill. The old Taoist and Aki looked at Wang Sheng in surprise. At first, he only asked some very simple questions such as his name, age, what was his original soul, when did he start cultivating, what kind of cultivation method he practiced, etc. It cannot be simpler. Was it worth asking about these things? But then, Wang Sheng still asked some trivial questions, such as when did he wear clothes, when did he learn to use a knife, when did he learn to eat food with seasoning, etc. The barbarian youth also answered one by one. For him, these questions were not difficult to answer. Slowly, when Wang Sheng asked about the stranger, the old Taoist and Aki finally understood. Everything before was just a foreshadowing, so they naturally transitioned to this. Baoqing Yutang had indeed brought great changes to the barbarians. From the clothing, food, housing, and transportation to the way of cultivation, the entire tribe's lifestyle had changed. Previously, the tribe's young men had to risk their lives to hunt, but now it was no longer necessary. After cultivating those cultivation methods, hunting became simple and life became easier. The people in the tribe were very grateful to Bao Qingyu Hall, which had brought great changes to them. They were even willing to sacrifice their lives for it, especially the long-bearded old Master Zhu, who had become the blood-sworn brother of the chief of the tribe. He had the power to decide the life and death of the people in the tribe. Old Master Zhu brought the god he worshipped to this tribe and made all the tribe members worship this god, while he himself became the god spokesperson. They taught the people that everything the tribe had now was the blessing of the god, brought by the god. The totem god that the tribe originally worshipped was the subordinate of the heavenly god. He easily gathered the faith of the entire tribe. Upon hearing this, Wang Sheng and the other two exchanged glances. They basically realized that this barbarian tribe had been completely controlled by Baoqing Yutang. If one tribe could play like this, then other tribes could also play like this. If the same method was used on the same barbarian tribe, then it would be extremely effective. These uncivilized barbarian tribes didn't know how to play any tricks, so they would fall easily. The Xia family and those forces who had paid a huge price to conquer the mountain Yulan could cry. Their ancestors had sacrificed their lives, but they still couldn't accomplish this. But now Baoqing Yutang had conquered the mountain Yulan in just a few years, using some cheap daily necessities, common cultivation manuals, and the simplest religious beliefs. When Wang Sheng asked the young barbarian how many tribes he knew in the vicinity, the young barbarian said 17. This was 12 more than what Qi knew, and they were all large tribes with more than 30 to 40,000 people, equivalent to the tribes of the young barbarians. As for the small tribes with a few thousand people at the beginning, there were even more scattered, about dozens of them. Moreover, it was said that 3 or 4 of the most powerful tribes had a population of more than 100,000. The young barbarians' tribe had dozens of the most powerful experts, and all of them were existences that the young barbarian could only look up to. His grandfather was one of those experts. The young barbarian was very ambitious. He wanted to become an expert on par with his grandfather in the next few years. The experts the young barbarian was talking about were probably the legendary realm experts the old Taoist had seen. There were dozens of tribes in one tribe, and with so many tribes of all sizes added up, there should be more than 2,000 of them. This number caused Wang Sheng, the old Taoist, and Aki to look at each other in dismay. This population, territory, and number of experts, they were probably not inferior to a medium-sized vassal state, right? Especially the number of experts. If Victorious Return had had so many experts in the past, it would have been impossible for the Tang, Xia, and Feng kingdoms to wipe them out. Wang Sheng suddenly thought of a problem and asked the young barbarian, "Why don't I see any flying mounts?" "Those are the mounts of gods." The young barbarian answered under the influence of the truth pill. Afterwards, Wang Sheng asked a few more questions before he finally understood. Bao Qingyuhal had relied on flying mounts to easily subdue the various tribes and make them worship and believe in the gods. In the eyes of these simple-minded barbarians, only a powerful god could subdue a flying demonic beast. Flying mounts don't belong to these barbarian tribes, Wang Sheng concluded. Bao Qing Yutang obtained them through other means. Unknowingly, Bao Qing Yutang had become a colossus with the strength of a medium-sized vassal state. He even had a part of his strength like flying mounts hidden in the shadows. Wang Sheng suddenly thought of a problem and asked Aki, "Will anyone follow us here?" "Definitely," Aki replied firmly. "It would be strange if those vassal states didn't send their experts to take a look. The Xia family is the closest. They might send a large group of experts here." "There's no way Bao Qing Yutang doesn't know we're here, right?" Wang Sheng asked again. "We made quite a commotion when we left. It's impossible that there aren't any spies from Bao Qing Yutang in the capital." This time, Aki and the old Taoist nodded and didn't say anything. "If you were the old Master Zhu of Bao Qingyu Hall, and you had such strength, and I, the enemy who killed his son, had barged into his territory, and there were experts from other countries, what would he do?" Wang Xing asked the two of them a very practical question. "After we figure out their background, will they find an opportunity to kill us when we return to our territory? Or are they going to kill us in the land of mountains and valleys?" "Of course they'll kill us directly." Even though Aki was a lone ranger, she knew what to choose. After saying that, Aki's expression changed. "Then, where are the experts that Bao Qing Yutang wants to kill us?" Wang Xing finally asked a question that everyone had already thought of. Chapter 943. Where else could they be? It must be in this forest. However, everyone was a little curious. Wang Sheng and the other two were not ordinary people. They could walk freely in the forest and were not affected by the terrain and the monsters. If Bao Qing Yutang really wanted to find the whereabouts of the three people, what method would he use? Putting himself in Wang Sheng's shoes, there was a forest spanning several hundred li or even more. Even if Wang Sheng wanted to know a person's location, what could he do? If it was on Earth, perhaps there would be some methods, such as GPS, mobile phone positioning, satellite monitoring, and so on. However, in this spirit world, how would he be able to accurately find the location of the three experts who survived in the forest? Thinking about it, he was afraid that there were only a few methods. Otherwise, he would have to wait on the road. This method had been used by Aki when she assassinated Wang Sheng, and it was very effective. Unfortunately, Wang Sheng, the old Taoist, and Aki were only here to take a look and confirm some things. There was no place that they had to go to or something that they had to do. It could be said that they came here on a whim. It was possible to go anywhere, so how could there be a road that they had to pass? The other method was to use a powerful method to track them. Coincidentally, when Aki was chasing Wang Sheng, she used the same method and found the whereabouts of Wang Sheng. However, the premise of using this method was to plant a scent source on Wang Sheng's body in advance, and then command a monster with a very sensitive sense of smell to track him. But Wang Sheng had left the capital for such a long time. Other than Aki and the old Taoist, did he come into contact with anyone else? If there was really someone else, it would be those guys who wanted to hit on Aki on the road. But their ending was very miserable. Could it be that it was a trap set for the three of them at that time? Wang Sheng sniffed. Wang Sheng's super sense of smell was released to the maximum. Then, countless smells from the surroundings drilled into Wang Sheng's nose. All kinds of scents matched with the surrounding environment. In the end, only the scents of the four people, including Wang Sheng, were left. After removing the young barbarian's scent, Wang Sheng began to search for clues in the remaining scents on the three of them. It was definitely not his body odor. Other than the smell of leather and weapons on his body, all that was left was the smell of the forest along the way. The smell of rubbing against me? Wang Sheng's heart skipped a beat. He began to search for similar scents on the three of them, especially those that were relatively light but could last for a long time. Soon, Wang Xing noticed that there was an unknown smell lingering on the path the three of them had taken, not dispersing even after a long time. How did the tribesmen find the outsiders in the forest? Wang Sheng asked the young barbarian, who was still under the effect of the drug. They're not from the forest. When you enter the forest from that side, you'll pass through a unique forest, the young barbarian answered naturally. After you pass through the forest, your body will be stained with some special grass juice. There are well-trained guide beasts in the tribe that can smell it. That was right. Wang Sheng knocked the young barbarian out with a punch. Then, he hurriedly called out to old Taoist Aki. Let's go. Old Taoist Ling Su had entered the newly built city. If anyone in the city noticed the missing barbarian, they would definitely track him down. They might soon follow the scent and catch up to them. If they did not leave now, it would be too late. Who would have thought that there would be such a thing in a unique forest that one would pass through when entering the mountains from China? That meant that anyone who came from Xia would be tracked down. Most likely, all of the experts who had entered the mountain range were going to suffer heavy casualties. Wang Sheng could not care about others. He had to take care of himself first. Old Taoist Ling Su might have a strong cultivation, but he would still be exhausted if he had to deal with dozens or hundreds of legendary experts at the same time. Now that he had discovered the enemy's possible arrangements, it was better to get rid of the smell on him first. Wang Sheng sprinkled a handful of chili powder on the road. Wang Sheng quickly pulled Aki along, identified the direction, and ran toward a big river that they had passed on their way here. The old Taoist did not need Wang Sheng to pull him along. He could keep up on his own. Less than half an hour after Wang Sheng and the other two left, a group of barbarians with the same pattern on their faces rushed over from the city. They were led by two monsters that Wang Sheng had never seen before. They were called the guide beasts by the barbarians. They had followed the scent all the way here. Soon, these barbarians saw the young barbarian who was unconscious. Someone immediately went over to wake him up. Wang Sheng had only asked questions and did not hurt anyone. The effects of the medicine had almost worn off, so the young barbarian did not know or remember what had happened. He did not know anything. The barbarian experts who were chasing them split into two groups. One group brought the young barbarian back, while the other group continued to chase them. Just as Wang Sheng had expected, they found the scent of outsiders in the city. This was something that the divine messenger had repeatedly mentioned. All outsiders who were sneaky must be killed. The guide beasts led dozens of barbarian experts and quickly chased after the scent left by Wang Sheng and the other two. The experts of the barbarian race also became excited because they had found fresh traces, which meant that their target was not far ahead. Suddenly, the two guide beasts at the front went crazy. Not only did they turn around crazily on the spot, they kept howling in pain. It seemed like they were even having trouble walking normally, let alone leading the way. One of the experts leading the group had a hint of vigilance in his eyes. He slowly squatted down and observed carefully. Soon, he found a red chili powder. He stretched out his finger and picked up a little bit. He brought it to his nose and sniffed it. He immediately knew what this red powder was. This was one of the spices that the divine messenger had brought. The fiery smell had conquered the taste buds of many barbarians, but when it entered the nose, it was a different kind of taste. No wonder the guide beasts had gone crazy. It turned out that these guys were prepared and had scattered chili powder. A few barbarians stepped forward. Some of them used water, while others used spiritual energy. After tossing and turning for a while, the leading beast finally returned to normal. They bypassed the chili powder area and continued to chase. This time, everyone had learned to be smart. They also kept an eye on the ground. Once they found something strange on the ground, they would immediately protect the guide beasts. Fortunately, they had encountered 3 chili powder ambushes on the road less than 5 kilometers. Fortunately, everyone had good eyesight and was well prepared, so the guide beasts did not fall for it again. However, they had wasted a lot of time. When they continued to chase for more than 10 kilometers to the side of a large river, the guide beasts could no longer find the scent of outsiders. The invading outsiders had either left by boat or entered the water. No matter how good the guide beast's sense of smell was, they could not track them. Chapter 944. The experts of the barbarian race didn't know who they were chasing. They only knew that it was an outsider. The abominable outsiders had not only sneaked into their homeland, but had also taken away one of their juniors. Moreover, they were the people that the divine emissary had said must be killed. What else could they say? They didn't even know how many people they were chasing. Even after rescuing the junior, they couldn't immediately find out what had happened, who they were, and how many people they were chasing. After losing the clue of the outsiders at the riverside, the experts of the barbarian race turned around and returned to their homeland, the newly built city. It didn't take long for the news that the outsiders had reached the edge of their city and even entered the city to spread throughout the U-Mountain land. Other tribes received the news one after another. Finally, even the divine emissary received the news. Sure enough, they have come. The divine emissary was, of course, landlord Zhu of Bao Qing. He had disguised himself as a swindler, but he was the only great swindler in this barbarian land. Bao Qing had spread his tentacles all over the U-Mountain land in just a few years. At the same time, he had also firmly controlled the entire U-Mountain land. As long as there are people coming, there must be more than one or two. Landlord Zhu also had his own information channels outside. He was very clear that Wang Sheng and the others were not the only experts who had entered the U-Mountain land. The Xia alone had sent 200 to 300 experts. It seemed that they wanted to conquer the U-Mountain land by force. It's about time. Let's close the net. Landlord Zhu estimated that the distance between the third city and the Xia was almost 200 miles deep. Such a large area was enough to prevent the people who had entered from escaping. Countless experts of the barbarian race rushed into the mountain forest from various cities. They were in groups of at least 10 people. Each group was accompanied by several leading beasts. They began to explore the traces of the outsiders with their respective cities as the center. Another group of experts quickly rushed to the edge of the U-Mountain land. They did not find any traces of outsiders along the way. Their task was to outflank the outsiders. When they arrived at the edge of the special forest, they would turn around and start hunting. No one knew how sensitive Wang Sheng's sense of smell was. It was even more unimaginable that Wang Sheng's nose could be comparable to that of the leading beasts. Tracking Wang Sheng was almost like looking for a needle in a haystack. Of course, even without such a sensitive nose, Wang Sheng's anti-tracking skill could also get rid of the barbarians. What a joke! If Wang Sheng, who had gone through scientific training in the hellish battlefield on Earth, could still be tracked by a group of semi-civilized barbarians, it would be too embarrassing. When they ran to the river, Wang Sheng only shouted to Aki and the old Taoist, "Jump!" and took the lead to jump without hesitation. Wang spirit. Without the slightest hesitation, Aki and the old Taoist jumped in right after him. The surging river water completely enveloped the three of them. At this time, not to mention the leading beasts, even demonic beasts with a sense of smell that was 10 or even 100 times stronger than the leading beasts would not be able to track them by relying on their unique smell. Under the water, Wang Sheng used a 5-word formula. There would not be any fish swimming within a few meters of him. Sometimes, it was even safer than on the road. As soon as they entered the water, Aki and the old Taoist noticed that Wang Sheng had already put on protective goggles and there was a strange thing in front of him. Wang Sheng gestured for the two of them to hold his arms. He gave each of them an oxygen tank and asked them to hold the mouthpiece in their mouths. Then, he infused his spiritual qi to make the impeller of the underwater vehicle rotate. The old Taoist saw through the principle of this underwater vehicle almost at a glance. Relying on Wang Sheng's spiritual qi to drive the array to rotate and drive the impeller, the three of them were pulled forward. With the oxygen tank, the three of them did not need to show their heads at all. They dived for at least a dozen miles along the current before coming ashore. The two of them were no longer surprised that Wang Sheng could take out these incredible things at any time. The old Taoist was not curious at all. The moment he came ashore, he threw the oxygen tank to Wang Sheng. However, Aki held the oxygen tank reluctantly. If she had such a thing, how convenient would it be for her to hide in the water and plot against her target in the future. The chi inside won't last long. Wang Sheng smiled. He did not forcefully take back the oxygen tank, but only gave a warning. Without Wang Sheng's power and the inflatable pump that those great grandmasters had made for Wang Sheng, no one in this world could compress the air more than 200 or 300 times and fill it into a cylinder. Even if Aki leaked this secret, no one could do the same. After coming out of the water, the three of them found a safe place to change their clothes. After entering the water and drifting for more than a dozen miles, the smell on their bodies had been completely washed away. Even Wang Sheng could not smell a trace of it. This also meant that Wang Sheng, Aki, and the old Taoist, because of his cleansing, would no longer be tracked by the leading beasts of the barbarian tribe. They had directly changed from outsiders to fish that had escaped the net. Although they could not guarantee that they would not be discovered, at least they could move freely without worrying about being tracked. Continue to wander inside, or go back. Wang Sheng analyzed the situation for the two of them, and then asked the two of them, "Don't you want to find Zhu Xingxing's whereabouts?" The old Taoist asked in surprise. Zhu Xingxing was the name of Bao Qingyu Tang's old master Zhu. "I'm not looking for him." Wang Sheng shook his head. "He has already set up a big net here. We would only be stupid to dive into the battlefield that he has arranged. Since he is playing such a big game, the major vassal states will not let him go. Why should we take the risk to find him?" "I'll listen to you." The old Taoist nodded without saying anything. He knew that his analysis and judgment in this aspect were definitely not as good as Wang Sheng's, so he would not make decisions in this aspect. When he was with Wang Sheng, it was basically Wang Sheng who made the decisions. As for Aki, she would not say no to Wang Sheng's decision. Since they had made a decision, the three of them were not the kind of people who dilly-dallied. They immediately identified the direction and rushed to the north. The Shanhua land was in the south of Xia, but Xia was not the only country that was bordered by the Shanhua land. There were also the state of Feng and the state of Tang. They passed through Xia because it was convenient for them to come here from the capital. Now that they were leaving, Wang Sheng decisively decided to go straight to the state of Tang. Although Wang Sheng made his decision without hesitation, it was still a little late. Bao Qingyu Tang had been preparing for a long time. When the three of them retreated about 25 kilometers, they ran into the barbarian search team. "There are experts in front, and there are many of them. We can't go any further." The old Taoist Ling Su was the first to discover the other party's existence. He stopped Wang Sheng and Aki in time. At the same time, Wang Sheng also discovered that there were people in front. Chapter 945. This time, Wang Sheng's reaction was as fast as old Taoist Ling Su's, which surprised the old Taoist a little. In the land of despair, Wang Sheng had always been the one to discover the enemy earlier than old Taoist Ling Su. But now that they were out of the land of despair, Wang Sheng's speed of discovering the enemy was on par with his. Could it be the after effects of recultivating after his cultivation had been lowered? Had his senses been lowered? But this was a small problem. Even if Wang Sheng had discovered the enemy late, he would have discovered it almost at the same time as the 12th-stage old Taoist Ling Su. To a junior who was only in the 7th-stage realm, what other demands could there be? Didn't he see that Aki was still confused and had no idea how terrifying the enemy in front of them was? Retreat. The old Taoist pulled Wang Sheng and retreated, and Aki followed suit. As they walked, the old Taoist warned, "There are at least 40 legendary realm experts in this area, and each of them is more than 30 feet away from each other. It's almost impossible to pass through them." The other party did not discover Wang Sheng and the other two. Firstly, old Taoist Ling Su had a way to block out some sounds. Secondly, Aki's tight protective suit had a concealment and silencing formation. Thirdly, Wang Sheng could use the 5-word formula and the effect of the stealth technique, combined with the characteristics of Wang Sheng's primordial spirit, to conceal the three's aura. Moreover, they were discovered outside the range of these experts, so they retreated calmly and did not alarm these barbarian experts. However, there was not much time left for Wang Sheng and the others, because the traces left along the way were inevitable, and they were fresh. If those barbarian experts advanced in their search, these traces would definitely be discovered. If they were the cultivation experts of the feudal lords, Wang Sheng might be confident that they would not be discovered. But the barbarians were different. They had lived in the jungles of the mountains since they were young, so they were very familiar with the situation in the jungles. It was obvious that the marks were left not long ago, so they would definitely chase after them. If the old Taoist priest were to take action, he would probably be able to kill all of them. However, it would not be easy to deal with more than 40 legendary experts at the same time. Moreover, who knew how many barbarians in the surrounding area would move at the slightest provocation? Once they started fighting, the old Taoist would probably be able to escape unscathed, but Wang Sheng and Aki would definitely be left behind. This was not what the old Taoist wanted to see. Even if he could protect Wang Sheng and escape alone, would he not care about Aki? It was the same the other way around. Therefore, this was not the time to make a move. It was best to avoid it. Go to that mountain. Wang Sheng felt the wind on the treetops and pointed to a tall mountain a dozen miles away. The old Taoist Ling Su never refuted Wang Sheng's judgment, so he rushed over there without saying a word. At the same time, Wang Sheng also used the 5 words formula to order all the insects and demonic beasts behind him to attack. As long as they entered the range of these insects and demonic beasts, they would attack with all their might. The insects and demonic beasts in the mountains were not as strong as those in the land of 1,000 devastations, but they had one thing in common, and that was that there were so many of them that it was hard to count. These insects and demonic beasts might not be able to hurt the legendary experts at all, but they could effectively slow them down. At the same time, they could also create a lot of new marks because of the battle, so that they could not accurately track the whereabouts of Wang Sheng and the others. When Wang Sheng and the other two quickly walked through the forest for a few miles, they suddenly heard the sound of fighting coming from the forest behind them. Wang Sheng understood that these experts had searched the area where Wang Sheng had issued the attack order and alarmed the insects, so they were attacked and then counterattacked. For legend rank experts, as long as they were careful and protected themselves with spiritual energy, they wouldn't be hurt by the attacks of these vermin demon beasts. However, there were so many insects. Nests of ants frantically drilled out of the ground, and if they were not careful, they would crawl all over their bodies. The swarms of flying insects could simply lift them up and sting them, especially some of them were very poisonous. They had no choice but to block them. Retreat? Obviously not. This abnormal situation could only mean that there was something wrong. The divine emissary had said that there was a person who could command these insects, and that they must kill him if they encountered him. In such a situation, they might have encountered that guy who must be killed. The barbarians were simple-minded. Under the dual control of matter and spirit, they did not disobey Zhu Xingxing's orders at all. While frantically using spiritual energy to kill these insects, they frantically sent out signals to summon their companions in the surroundings. No matter what, they had to put Wang Sheng to death. When these barbarian experts were pinned down by the insects, Wang Sheng and the other two had already run to the foot of the mountain. Hearing the movements behind them, the 3 of them did not need to be urged to climb up the mountain in a frenzy. The mountain was not high, but it was not low either. It was at least a few hundred meters high, but for Wang Sheng and the other two, it was not difficult at all. It took them less than 20 minutes to climb to the top. At this time, the movements of the pursuers were within 5 miles of the foot of the mountain, and they would soon reach the foot of the mountain. It was clear that even with the influence of those crazy bugs, the barbarian tribe still chased after the tracks left behind by Wang Sheng and the other two. It could only be said that there were tracking experts among them, and it was estimated that the leading beasts had helped a lot. If they could smell the extremely light and unique smell of grass juice, they would definitely be able to smell the smell of Aki or the old Taoist. Of course, if Wang Sheng was alone, it would be useless for those people to follow his scent. Wang Sheng could restrain his aura, and even his body odor would not be emitted, so it did not matter how many leading beasts there were. What do we do now? Old Taoist Ling Su looked at the large-scale disturbance in the jungle at the foot of the mountain and asked Wang Sheng, "Now that we've been discovered, Do we keep retreating? There's no rush. Let's rest for a while and recover our energy. Wang Xing looked at the surroundings and firmly told the two of them to rest. We can't keep retreating. We have to go from the front. Old Taoist Ling, Su raised his eyebrows. Go from the front? Was this the posture of a battle? Without saying anything, he found a tree trunk to lean against and slowly sat down to rest. Rest? Aki looked at the foot of the mountain and then looked over here. She could not help but ask, we still have to rest? They're getting closer. If we still can't shake them off and they catch up to us, once they surround us, we won't be able to escape even if we have wings. Who said that? Wang Xing laughed. Who said that we won't be able to escape even if we have wings? Don't worry, we'll grow wings and fly over their heads in a while. Chapter 946. Before Aki could say anything, she saw something suddenly appear in Wang Sheng's hand. She immediately shut her mouth and waited quietly. What Wang Sheng took out was the parts of the delta wing that he had used when he was chased by the experts from the Song family. Under the watchful eyes of the two, he skillfully assembled it. The delta wing from the last time was still not perfect. After Wang Sheng used it once, he went back and modified it. The area of the flying wing was increased by half, but the weight did not increase. It was originally intended for one person, but for people who were not very heavy, it was fine to add one or two more. Wang Xing only needed to lengthen both sides of the grip bar below the triangular wing, and then use leather to make two leg pockets to connect the triangular wing. The assembly was very simple. It took Wang Xing less than 3 minutes to install the triangular wing. Next, he began to explain how to use it to Aki and Old Taoist Ling Su. In fact, for Aki and the Old Taoist, the method was very simple. They just needed to put their feet in the leather pockets and hold the grip bar with their hands. As for taking off, Wang Sheng could lift the triangular wing by himself. When Wang Sheng was done with everything, Aki asked Wang Sheng, "What about the flying mounts? We haven't seen any flying mounts since we came in." Wang Sheng had already considered this problem, so he quickly replied, "However, we can't rule out the possibility that they will use them. So, your task is to carefully look around and see which direction there are flying beasts. I'll take care of the rest." Both Aki and the Old Taoist knew that Wang Sheng had a heavy sniper crossbow with a range of more than 5 kilometers, so they were not surprised. Achi nodded and didn't say anything else. "What about me?" The Old Taoist also asked. "You're responsible for the bottom," Wang Sheng replied with a smile. "If anyone attacks us from below, you'll be responsible for blocking it. Of course, their people can't be as tall as us. At most, they have some arrows and the like." The Old Taoist agreed and put his legs into the leather pockets according to Wang Sheng's request. Then, he and Aki hung on the two ends of the triangular wing. Wang Sheng once again looked at the foot of the mountain. The barbarian experts who were rushing up the mountain had caused a huge commotion in the forest. However, the countless insects had caused a huge commotion, not only in this direction, but there was also the same movement in another direction. Even Wang Sheng could hear it from behind. The trap of Bao Qing Yutang was big enough. He had sent so many experts to search for them. Ordinary outsiders would not be able to escape. It was a pity that such a grand scheme had run into Wang Sheng. The place where the three of them stopped happened to be an open space on the mountain. In front of them was a small cliff, which was just enough for the triangular wing to take off. After checking the state of the 3 people again and the triangular wing, Wang Sheng picked up the triangular wing with Aki and Old Taoist Ling Su in both hands and strode towards the cliff. He rushed to the edge of the cliff and leaped forward. Amidst Aki's screams, the triangular wing descended rapidly. Its speed became faster and faster until it had accumulated enough lift force. Just as it was about to fall into the forest below, it suddenly pulled up under Wang Sheng's control. Like a big bird, it flew dozens of feet high and began to glide. Aki's screams attracted the attention of all the barbarian experts below. Seeing their targets suddenly fly up, all the barbarian experts were dumbfounded. The enemy had flown away. How could they chase after them? They were relying on their numbers and the fact that there were people in several directions ahead of them. That was why they were able to surround them on the mountain. But Wang Sheng and the others had flown away. How could they chase after them on foot? In terms of speed, even a normal run might not be able to catch up with the triangular wing gliding. Moreover, they were in the forest, so they could not run fast at all. Moreover, under Wang Sheng's command, they had to deal with thousands of insects crawling on their bodies with every step they took. At this time, it was a miracle to be able to keep track of the three people's flying direction with their eyes, let alone attack. They were in the middle of the forest. Looking up, they could see all kinds of towering trees. If it were not for Aki's screams, these people would not even have seen the triangular wing. Who would have thought that three people could fly? The group of people on foot could only watch as the three of them hung under a strange large wing, flying back in the direction they came from at a speed several times faster than theirs. In just a short while, they had already flown at least a dozen miles away. From the looks of it, they could easily fly dozens of miles away. There was wind at the moment. The direction Wang Sheng chose to fly in was with the help of the wind. As long as he maintained his gliding state, it would not be a problem for him to fly dozens of miles or even hundreds of miles. Aki was no longer screaming in fear. Instead, she was screaming excitedly. She was in the air, looking at the towering trees below, turning into small shadows in her eyes. She could feel the strong wind whistling around her. She could feel the nothingness where her feet did not touch the ground. Aki could not help but scream like a child. Relatively speaking, old Taoist Ling Su was very calm. Whether it was descending or taking off, he was calm and did not make the slightest noise. Even for the old Taoist, it was his first time flying like this. Unaffected by the insects, a group of barbarian experts had already rushed up to where Wang Sheng and the other two were. They stood at the edge of the cliff that Wang Sheng had jumped off from. They looked at the three people who had already turned into small black dots and could not vent their anger. The leader of the barbarian experts gave an order. Then, one of the experts immediately released a small bird that he had brought with him. This was a bird used by the barbarians for communication. It had the same function as messenger birds. This was probably the guy that the divine emissary had strongly requested to kill. They could not just watch as Wang Sheng and the other two flew out of their sight and escaped without a trace. Not long after, a huge flying monstrous beast flew up from somewhere in the forest. The flying monstrous beast had something similar to a saddle tied to its body. There were 5 people sitting on the saddle, and they were flying quickly in this direction. The flying monstrous beast flew very fast. With a flap of its huge wings, it could cover a distance of several miles. It only took a moment for it to fly over. After flying for a while, they saw the 3 people gliding in the sky. When the experts on the monstrous beast discovered Wang Sheng and the others, Aki and the old Taoist also discovered the flying monstrous beast and informed Wang Sheng in time. There is indeed a flying mount. Wang Sheng turned his head to look at the flying monstrous beast in the distance. He decisively took out his heavy sniper crossbow. The 2 of you don't move. Control the direction of your flight. Wang Sheng warned the 2 of them. Then, he flipped his body over and lay down on the crossbow. The heavy sniper crossbow was quickly pointed at the flying monstrous beast. Chapter 9:47. Demonic beasts were huge, but they were not necessarily strong. At most, they were at the 8th stage, or even lower. The reason why they were difficult to possess was that they were difficult to capture and tame. That was why their numbers were very low. Wang Sheng's heavy sniper crossbow was designed to kill a legendary expert. It could even kill a 9th stage legendary expert, not to mention a 7th or 8th stage flying demonic beast. As long as these demonic beasts were within shooting range, it would be a piece of cake for Wang Sheng to kill them. However, wouldn't it be a waste to kill such a rare flying demonic beast with 1 arrow? If the 5 words of the 9 words mantra were used cleverly, it might be possible to control these demonic beasts. These flying demonic beasts were so difficult to capture, yet they were sent right in front of their eyes, yet they still wanted to kill them with 1 arrow. This was not a reckless waste of resources, right? The gliding speed of a triangular wing was constant. Flying demonic beasts were much faster than this. Seeing that the demonic beast would catch up with the three of them with just a few flaps of its wings, Aki was a little anxious. "Why aren't you moving?" Aki urged. "No hurry, no hurry." Before Wang Sheng could answer, the old Taoist had already explained, "Let's get closer and see if there's a chance." Wang Sheng opened his mouth, as if he was chanting some incantation, but it didn't seem like it. Aki and old Taoist Ling Su didn't hear it at all, but old Taoist Ling Su could feel a wave of spiritual energy coming from Wang Sheng's mouth. He knew that Wang Sheng had released the 9 words mantra. The flying demonic beast suddenly stopped in the air, as if it had suddenly stopped moving. The experts on the back of the flying demon beast suddenly leaped forward. If it weren't for the saddles on the back of the demon beasts, which allowed them to hold onto the saddles and stabilize their bodies, they might have been thrown down from the sky. However, this kind of sudden movement in the air was a common occurrence for the flying demonic beasts. Those people were already used to it. The expert who was in charge of controlling the demonic beast skillfully pulled on the leather strap on the demonic beast's head. With a shout, the flying demonic beast flapped its wings again and chased after Wang Sheng and the other two. Wang Sheng opened his mouth again and shouted at the flying demonic beast. This time, he made a sound, but it was very chaotic, as if Wang Sheng was shouting uncontrollably. This time, the flying demonic beast suddenly lowered its altitude and retracted its wings. Together with the experts on its back, it fell towards the jungle below in a free fall. The few people on the back of the demonic beast were scared out of their wits. No matter how high their cultivation was, falling from such a height of more than 1,000 feet would cause them to lose a layer of skin even if they didn't die. The few of them were in a flurry. They either stabilized themselves or prepared to jump up with the help of the demonic beast body. The one in charge of controlling the demonic beast was very calm. He kept patting the neck of the demonic beast and shouted continuously, as if urging the demonic beast to fly again. Fortunately, the flying demonic beast wasn't really going to free fall. When it was still a few dozen feet above the ground, it spread its wings and flew again. The few experts on the back of the demonic beast were so scared by the scene that they almost couldn't breathe. They only recovered when they felt that the flight had stabilized. Their faces were full of fear, and they didn't know if they would dare to ride on a flying mount again. Under the command of the beast tamer, the flying demonic beast quickly flew towards Wang Sheng and the other two. This time, Wang Sheng waited until the distance between the demonic beast and the three of them was less than 5 miles. It only needed 1 or 2 more flaps of its wings to catch up before it let out another loud roar. The roar of the 5-word formula, which was mixed with Pu Lao's power, directly collided with the flying demonic beast. Boom! This time, it wasn't just the demonic beast. Even a few people on the back of the demonic beast were affected. The few of them felt as if they were covered by a huge bell, and the huge bell was still ringing loudly outside. Everyone's ears were ringing chaotically, and in that instant, the few of them even had the thought of turning around immediately, not wanting to fight the person in front of them. The flying demonic beast was even worse off. This time, it directly paused in the air, and then it started to spin and fall. It didn't even know to keep its wings. As it spun and fell, the few people on the back of the demonic beast panicked even more. They tightly grabbed onto anything they could grab and followed the demonic beast as it spun. Other than the beast tamer, the others all let out miserable cries of despair. After all, the beast tamer still had his own way of doing things. In the process of falling, he didn't care about his dizziness from being flung around, and kept using his fist to hit the neck of the demonic beast with a unique rhythm, trying his best to wake the demonic beast up and regain control. Finally, just when everyone was about to touch the treetop below, the demonic beast seemed to suddenly regain its consciousness. A pair of huge wings flapped. Its body suddenly flattened. Its abdomen brushed against the treetop below and directly glided away. After a few turns, it suddenly flapped its wings a few times and then flew up again. This happened 3 times in a row. Even a stupid person would know that this must have something to do with Wang Sheng and the other two people they were chasing in front. Especially this time. Wang Sheng's loud roar had almost caused them to faint. Even if they didn't want to know, it would be hard for them to not know. Under such circumstances, should they still continue to chase them? The brains of the barbarians were relatively slow, but they weren't stupid. If they continued to chase like this, not only would they not be able to catch up with Wang Sheng and the others, they would also have to die. However, looking at Wang Sheng and the other two people in front of them, who had already descended a little, the few experts on the back of the demonic beast felt somewhat unwilling. Everyone could see that as long as the triangular wings on top of Wang Sheng and the others were damaged, Wang Sheng and the others would fall down. Such a simple task, and they actually had to retreat after being called out by Wang Sheng. If they were to return like this, they were afraid that what awaited them would not be a good result. Being scolded would probably be a light punishment, and they might even have to accept the tribe's punishment. They were the reputable experts in the tribe, and if they were to retreat without a fight, it would definitely be a lifetime of shame for them. The tribe's warriors could have their heads broken, and their blood could flow, but they could never retreat without fighting. After the flying demonic beast circled around, it once again chased after them. This time, the beast tamer had learned his lesson. He no longer maintained the same height as Wang Sheng and the others, but flew above Wang Sheng and the others. As long as he caught up with them, he could attack from above. How could Wang Sheng still be able to attack them? The idea was not bad, and the execution was also very beautiful. The demonic beast nimbly controlled its body, flew up into the sky, and swooped down towards Wang Sheng and the others. Damn it, a beast will always be a beast. I gave you 3 chances, but you're still stubborn. Don't blame me then. Wang Sheng clearly saw this scene. He raised his heavy sniper crossbow and aimed at the slowly flying demonic beast in the sky. Chapter 948. What a pity! Old Taoist Ling Su sighed and shook his head in agreement with Wang Sheng. It's too far away. Wang Sheng knew what old Taoist Ling Su was feeling. However, given the current situation, he had no other choice but to tell him the reason. Yes, Old Taoist had also practiced the 9 words Buddhist incantation. Of course, he knew how powerful Wang Sheng's 9 words Buddhist incantation was. Just as Wang Sheng had said, it was too far away, so its power was greatly reduced. There was nothing that could be done about it. The closest distance between the two parties was 2 miles away. It was simply impossible for Wang Sheng to use the 9 words Buddhist incantation to control such a huge flying demonic beast from 2 miles and a kilometer away. Unless they were in the core circle of the land of Thousand Despair, it was simply impossible to do so outside. Chi, who was listening at the side, was confused. Too far? What did that mean? Based on what Wang Sheng had said, Aki could guess that Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su wanted to control this flying demonic beast. How is that possible? Wasn't it too unbelievable? However, looking at the regretful expressions on Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su's faces, they did not seem to be lying. Could it be that Wang Sheng really had the ability to control flying demonic beasts? Aki had a stomach full of questions, but she could not ask them. She could only watch as Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su spoke in riddles, especially when Wang Sheng had already raised his heavy sniper crossbow. Aki's eyes also widened. She had always heard that Wang Sheng had a magical weapon that could take a life from 10 miles away. It must be this crossbow. At such a close distance, she had to take a good look at it. Bang! Facing the flying demonic beast and the experts on its back, who wanted to attack him from above, Wang Sheng calculated the distance, wind direction, and advance, and finally pulled the trigger at the right time. A heavy arrow flew out with a whoosh. The huge momentum caused Wang Sheng's group of 3 and Delta Wing to involuntarily sink a few meters. Wang Sheng flipped over in time to regain his balance, allowing Delta Wing to regain his stability. It was just a momentary change. Before Achi could feel the fear of almost losing his balance, he heard an explosion in the distance. After firing the heavy arrow, Wang Sheng was busy controlling the delta wing. He did not even look to see if he hit the target. However, there was no need for Wang Sheng to take a closer look. When the explosion rang out, Wang Sheng knew that the arrow had exploded. It must have hit its target. When Chi turned his head with the sound of the explosion, he saw the fragments of the huge flying demonic beast's head shattering in all directions behind him. Just now, Wang Sheng's arrow had accurately hit the flying demonic beast's head. To be exact, it was shot accurately at the front of the flying demonic beast's body, the sharp beak. The heavy arrow directly penetrated the horn of the demonic beast's sharp beak, penetrated its head, and then exploded. The explosion was not only caused by the explosive array on the heavy arrow itself, but also the explosive arrow technique that Wang Sheng had added to the heavy arrow. The two exploded at the same time. It sounded like one, but only Wang Sheng knew that it was two explosions. The explosion of the heavy arrow was only caused by the array and the spiritual energy that Wang Sheng had applied to it. The arrow itself was not damaged. It penetrated the demonic beast's head, drilled into the demonic beast's neck, and then shot out from the back of the neck, directly inserted into the body of the beast tamer, who was sitting behind the beast tamer. Then it penetrated the beast tamer and another barbarian expert behind the beast tamer, and then flew into the air. The flying demonic beast died instantly, and the beast tamer was no exception. The remaining people no longer had anything to rely on. They could only scream, and along with the high-speed flying demonic beast, along with the inertia, they crashed down diagonally. Originally, they had planned to attack Wang Sheng's group of 3 at high speed. With the death of the demonic beast, there was no possibility of changing direction. The few people who were still alive on the flying demonic beast no longer had a chance to pull them up. They could only crash down with their own screams. Fortunately, the 3 who were still alive were experts. They knew that there was no way to escape, so they simply untied the restraint of the saddle and adjusted their posture. When they were about to hit the ground, they immediately used the demonic beast's body as a buffer, hoping that they could survive. When the demonic beast's body crashed into the crown of the tree, the 3 experts of the barbarian race simultaneously jumped on top of the demonic beast's body. Since it was a matter of life and death, the 3 of them could be said to have used all of their strength, trying to cushion the momentum of their descent. Unfortunately, the height was at least 150 feet. Coupled with the initial speed of the demonic beast dive, it was simply wishful thinking to rely on the strength of a single jump to cushion the impact. Bang, bang, bang. 3 consecutive sounds were heard. After the demonic beast had hit the ground, the 3 experts had also smashed an unknown number of tree trunks, branches, and bones into the ground one after another. After a few hours, the experts responsible for the search and rescue rushed over. At the scene, only 1 expert had survived, with half of his bones broken. The rest of the people, including the flying demonic beast, had all turned into meat patties. After several consecutive attacks by the flying demonic beast, Wang Sheng's group of 3 had already flown at least a dozen miles away. When they discovered that the flying demonic beast was no longer a threat to the 3 people who had escaped, the experts of the barbarian race didn't send any more flying demonic beasts to chase after them. How could such a precious mount be sent to Wang Sheng one by one? After flying for another hour and a half with the help of the wind, Wang Shengkai controlled the triangular wing to slowly land in a wide river. After using the 5-word formula in advance to drive away all the fish in the river, the 3 of them easily landed in the water. There was no other way. This mountain area was basically a jungle. Other than these wide rivers, if they landed in other places, they would inevitably hit the crown of the tree, which was very dangerous. Although he knew that everyone's cultivation was enough to handle it, Wang Sheng still landed in the river very safely. Drenched, they went ashore and put away the delta wing. After finding a place to change into a set of dry clothes, the 3 of them then sat down and slowly rested. They were already at least 150 miles away from the place where they were intercepted. Even if the experts of the barbarian race had wings, they would not be able to catch up so quickly. Moreover, their flying demonic beast did not dare to move at will, for fear of being killed by Wang Sheng again. It could be said that they were already considered safe here. At most, there was another 20 to 30 miles before they could leave the mountain area and enter the territory of the Tang Empire or the Feng Empire. We should be safe now. After Wang Sheng roughly estimated the location, he gave the two a very certain answer. However, the people that the other feudal vassals sent in might not be as lucky as us. Upon hearing that they were at a safe place, Aki immediately relaxed. She leaned against Wang Sheng and rested for a while, without caring about her image, before getting excited again. This time, Aki followed Wang Sheng, flying in the sky and entering the water. It could be said that she had a great time. At her age, she was the most curious. At this moment, there were no outsiders, so Aki could not help but ask, "How on earth did we fly?" Chapter 9:49. Not to mention Aki, even the old Taoist Ling Su was curious about it. It was just that he was able to keep his composure and did not ask. Now that Aki asked, the old Taoist was happy to take a ride and listen. "The equipment credit has nothing to do with us," Wang Sheng explained with a smile. Wang Sheng was not an expert in this aspect, so he probably would not be able to explain the principle of the delta wing. Of course, even if Wang Sheng could clearly explain that the delta wing shape could cause the airflow to be uneven, resulting in a difference in pressure and hence lift, Aki and the old Taoist Ling Su would probably not understand. Without the foundation of modern scientific and technological knowledge, and without understanding basic physics, it was not easy to understand. Of course, Aki and the old Taoist understood that it was the equipment's credit, but Wang Sheng's answer left them speechless. "You won't understand, even if I explain it. It's right here, you can look at it yourself." Wang Sheng took out the parts of the delta wing again and let the two observe them. Obviously, Aki and the old Taoist Ling Su could not figure it out after looking at it for a long time. They could only watch resentfully as Wang Sheng put it away. Wang Sheng could fly in the sky and dive into the sea. This trip with the two of them by Wang Sheng completely made them look at Wang Sheng in a different light. Although the old Taoist cultivation was high, he could not rely on his cultivation alone to fly in the sky and dive into the sea. Aki's expression did not look too good, perhaps because she thought of some unhappy things. She thought of the cylinder with a snorkel that allowed her to breathe in the water, and of her previous companion, who seemed to have been drowned by Wang Sheng in the water. These memories made Aki look at Wang Sheng in a strange way. "Don't look at me like that." Of course, Wang Sheng could feel it. He also knew the reason for the sudden hatred in their eyes. He calmly said, "You want to kill me, so I can't let you kill me without resisting. As assassins, you must have this awareness. You can only kill yourselves and not let others kill you. How can there be such a good thing in this world? But you obviously didn't rely on your cultivation to kill them." Aki suddenly lost control. Tears flowed from her eyes as she shouted at Wang Sheng. If the last few companions had not worked with her for a long time and did not have a deep relationship with her, then the first two, Big Ear and Big Bear, had definitely been Aki's playmates since she was young. She had never forgotten that they were killed by Wang Sheng. "I'm sorry, but almost all the people I've killed didn't rely on their cultivation." Wang Sheng didn't care about this kind of accusation at all. He just calmly said to Aki, "Forgive me for being presumptuous, but how many times have you killed your targets in the past by relying on your cultivation?" Aki was suddenly speechless. When she worked with Big Ear and Big Bear, she relied on her clever brain and Big Ear's extraordinary hearing. They could always set up ambushes in advance and use many unimaginable methods to kill their targets. If they really relied on their cultivation, why would they use these methods? Wouldn't it be fine to just kill their targets openly? You're allowed to kill people without relying on your cultivation, but you can't let others kill you without relying on their cultivation. Wang Sheng shook his head and sighed at Aki. "You can't play with double standards like this." "I'm sorry." Aki quickly recovered from that state and apologized to Wang Sheng. I was just suddenly thinking about my old companions." "I understand." Wang Sheng smiled at Aki. "I'm waiting for the day you can completely let go of these things." Suddenly, Aki felt a wave of warmth in her heart. She also felt a little guilty, so she lowered her head and said nothing more. At the end of the day, Wang Sheng had not taken the initiative to provoke them back then. It was they who had taken the initiative to provoke Wang Sheng. Because of that, they had been killed by Wang Sheng. If they were to blame Wang Sheng for it, it would be unreasonable. If Aki had always been an assassin, it would be understandable for her to think this way. When did assassins ever speak reason? Most of the time, they killed for money, but now Aki's identity was different. She was a gift from the Xia family to Wang Sheng. Originally, Wang Sheng could do whatever he wanted with her, but Wang Sheng didn't kill her. Instead, he gave her the identity of a death warrior to leave the Xia family. This was a kindness, and Aki could not repay it. This time, Aki was just feeling emotional. When she thought of Wang Sheng's equipment, she thought of her dead companions. However, Aki gradually realized that she rarely thought of her former companions. Was it because she could sleep peacefully under Wang Sheng's protection? Old Taoist Ling, Su had been listening quietly and didn't say anything. Seeing the two of them talk up to this point, he felt a sense of relief. Fortunately, he had never been close to a woman since he was young. Otherwise, wouldn't there be a lot of similar troubles? Have you rested enough? Let's go. Wang Sheng saw that the time was right. He stood up and beckoned the two of them to leave. This time, there was no one to stop them. After walking for more than 10 miles, they were almost out of the mountain forest and arrived at the plains. Judging from a map, this should be the territory of the Kingdom of Feng. However, Wang Sheng wasn't completely sure. After all, the map of this world couldn't be compared with the accurate military map that Wang Sheng was used to. The horizontal and vertical scales were different, so Wang Sheng couldn't be completely sure that they were in the Kingdom of Feng. However, the biggest error would be in the Kingdom of Feng or the Kingdom of Tang. It couldn't be further. Just as Wang Sheng led Aki and old Taoist Ling Su to leisurely look for the official road and then find the nearest city to rest, a crazy massacre was going on in the mountain. Baoqing Yutang had already set up a trap in the mountain, waiting for the people outside to walk into it. Zhu Xingxing couldn't be blamed. After all, as long as Wang Sheng moved, all the forces would try to track him down. No one invited them into the mountain. If they went in and met with any mishaps, no one else could be blamed. The experts of the barbarian tribe were searching from the outside to the inside. They had a large number of people, but there were few large-scale teams. The other side was scheming against them. Moreover, they were in an environment that the experts of the barbarian tribe were familiar with. In just 3 days, more than 400 to 500 experts died in the mountain. On average, there were at least 10 to 20 of them for each faction, big or small. However, this was not the biggest loss. When Wang Sheng, Aki, and old Taoist Ling Su found a large city and went in to find out that it was in the territory of the Kingdom of Tang, the capital of Xia received a desperate message by messenger bird. It was a message sent by an expert of Xia who had been plotted against when his companions were blocking the attacks of the experts of the barbarian tribe. This time, more than 300 people of Xia followed them into the mountain. They were surrounded by the experts of the barbarian tribe, who suddenly appeared and suffered heavy casualties. By the time the message was sent, there were only a dozen experts of Xia left, while the experts of the barbarian tribe were still coming. Chapter 950. Experts from Xia were not the only ones who spread the news. There were also experts from other countries, but the scale was not as large as that of Xia. Even so, the number of casualties was enough to shock those who knew the truth. All of a sudden, the barren land, which had no value at all, had turned into a high-quality territory full of experts, countless territories, and a large population comparable to that of an upper-middle vassal state. When a major vassal states exchanged the news, they all turned pale with fright. Baoqing Yutang had made such a big news without batting an eyelid. No one was prepared for it. At this time, Xia could no longer sit still. Last time, it was revealed that an elder had participated in helping Baoqing Yutang transfer property. At that time, everyone thought it was a small matter, so they didn't pay much attention to it. Xia casually gave them a way to deal with it, and they got away with it. But now, everyone knew that something big must have happened. What Baoqing Yutang did was not a simple transfer of property. With such a huge commotion, who would believe that Xia country was completely unaware of it? Unfortunately, the Xia kingdom was also suffering in silence, unable to voice out its bitterness. This time, Xia had sent more than 300 experts to the Shangyue land with the help of Wang Sheng. Although not all of them were experts of the legendary realm, they were at least at the 7th or 8th stage. In addition, they were led by several experts of the legendary realm. Ordinary small tribes were no match for them at all. The problem was that this judgment was based on the Xia family's understanding of the barbarians of the Shangyue land hundreds of years ago. The original plan was very good. They would use Baoqing Yutang's manpower and material resources to open up a path for them, and use Wang Sheng to attract everyone's attention. Then, the experts of Xia would seize several barbarian tribes in one fell swoop and use them as their base in the Shangyue land, and then slowly unify the whole Shangyue land. The idea was good, and the plan was really good. Unfortunately, they had underestimated the strength of the barbarians, and even more so, the ability of Baoqing Yutang. More than 300 elite disciples of Xia were swallowed by the barbarian experts in the Shangyue land, leaving nothing behind. Not long ago, Qiuguokai had just lost hundreds of experts on his side, and now it was Xia's turn. However, everything that Baoqing Yutang had done before was done with the support of Xia. Just as Wang Sheng had said, it was too unbelievable for an elder to be able to stir up trouble in the Xia kingdom. From the beginning to the end, Baoqing Yuhal had only been successfully transferred to the safety of the mountains with the help of the Xia kingdom. Secretly controlling a chain business throughout the country had immeasurable benefits for a vassal state. It was estimated that Xia had begun to plan this matter as early as after the inauguration ceremony in Tongxing City of the Imperial Treasury. It was very likely that more than one vassal state had been tempted back then. It was just that the Xia kingdom had acted earlier, or it could be said that the Xia kingdom's geographical location was more suitable. Although the Feng kingdom and the Tang kingdom also shared a border with the land of mountains and valleys, the Tang kingdom was one of the 5 great clans in the past. It was extremely powerful and was obviously not a partner of the Baoqing Hall. Although Feng State and Tang State also shared a border with the Shangyue land, Tang State was one of the 5 great families in the past, and it was very powerful. Obviously, it was not a partner of Baoqing Yutang. The state of Feng had the same size as the state of Xia, and they were both smaller than the 5 major clans. Unfortunately, the border between the state of Feng and the mountain ridge land was relatively short. If one really took the route of the state of Feng, it would be very easy to be discovered. It was not comparable to the state of Xia. The border between the state of Xia and the mountain ridge land was thousands of miles long. One could enter any place without being discovered. Zhu Xingxing of Baoqing Yutang was not a fool. Of course, he would choose Xia. Therefore, as soon as Xia hooked up with Baoqing Yutang, they hit it off immediately and began to cooperate with each other with ulterior motives. It was obvious that the Baoqing Yuhal had gained the upper hand in the end. Not only had the Xia family personally nurtured the Baoqing Yuhal's influence in the land of Tranquil Mountains, they had also protected and escorted the Baoqing Yuhal in the early stages. They had not hesitated to help the Baoqing Yuhal hide from everyone. When they thought that they could swallow the delicious prey that was the Baoqing Yuhal, they suddenly realized that the prey had turned into the hunter and swallowed over 300 of their elite disciples. Before other countries could feel sad, the news that Wang Sheng appeared in the city of Tang State spread to all countries again. Aki's attire was too easy to recognize. No matter where she went, she would attract attention. Her reputation had long spread. Therefore, Wang Sheng and old Taoist Aki were recognized as soon as they entered the city of Tang State. Those who followed Wang Sheng in Shangyue land were almost wiped out, but Wang Sheng and the other 2 swaggered out. This made many people feel puzzled. But as soon as they thought of the old Taoist Ling Su beside Wang Sheng, they felt relieved. Old Taoist Ling Su's reputation was absolutely convincing. He was at least an expert at the peak of the legendary realm. It was not a problem for him to enter and exit Shanhua land freely. However, even so, some people still felt uncomfortable and began to suspect whether this was a trap set up by Wang Sheng and Baoqing Yutang. Otherwise, why did Wang Sheng and the others come out, but there was no news of the others who went in? This was too inexplicable, right? Some people just couldn't bear to see others do well, especially when there was no news of their own people. But Wang Sheng was still swaggering around. Although the kings of various countries knew that this statement was a joke, Wang Sheng could come and go freely in the land of thousand extremes. What was a mere Shanhua land? However, this statement was still rampant in various countries, and they felt that Wang Sheng was deliberately misleading them. All parties tacitly condoned this statement. In their opinion, as long as this public opinion was formed, then all parties could justifiably put pressure on Wang Sheng and make Wang Sheng give up his own interests in all aspects. Even if the Runzi Workshop and Dream Workshop, Qian, Xingyuan opened branches in various countries, it would still be good enough. Even if it didn't reach hundreds of millions, it would still be tens of millions. At the end of the day, it was all about interests. Wang Shi didn't know about this at all. After resting for a day in the small city of Tang Kingdom, the three of them swaggered away. No one dared to follow them, and until now, no one knew where Wang Sheng was. Unfortunately, Zhu Xingsheng, Bao Qing Yutang, didn't know about the tacit plans of all parties. The spies he had planted in various places couldn't even reach the level of the kings of the various vassal states, let alone know their thoughts. After completely eliminating the experts who invaded Shanhua land, Zhu Xingxing's representative openly appeared in the capital and released the news. Zhu Xingxing wanted to establish the Shanhua kingdom, and the representative of Shanhua would also pay a visit to the emperor and ask him to confer a title. Baoqing Yutang's old boss finally revealed his fangs at this time. Establishing a kingdom was the first thing he wanted to do. The second thing was to put a bounty on Wang Sheng's head, and the price was 5 flying mounts. Chapter 9:51. At this time, flying mounts were extremely valuable goods. In fact, the word valuable could not even be used to describe them. Even if one had gold coins, no matter how much gold coins they had, they might not be able to own a flying mount. Before Baoqing Yutang revealed that he had a flying mount, there were only 2 vassal states in the world that had 2 flying mounts. Moreover, they were the only 2 in the past 100 years. Usually, flying mounts were extremely precious and would not be used easily. Even when the representatives of the vassal states came to the capital for important matters, they would still come by land instead of flying. On one hand, it was to prevent ordinary people from panicking at the sight of flying monsters. On the other hand, it was because flying mounts were too precious and were considered a strategic resource. At any time, a flying mount and a few experts at the peak of the legendary realm could land on the head of an enemy leader. In the past, there were almost no experts at the peak of the legendary realm, but now, there were quite a few in every vassal state. In this way, with the help of a flying beast, the enemy would not be able to eat or sleep in peace. It was undeniable that many people were tempted to take 5 of such important flying mounts just to put a bounty on Wang Sheng's head. The vassal states could still sit still. After all, Wang Sheng was involved in the interests of the core area of the land of thousand extremities. To them, a few flying beasts were far from comparable to the interests of the core area of the land of thousand extremities. However, the temptation was different for some of the smaller vassals and forces. The secrets of the core area of the land of thousand extremities had nothing to do with them. It was the exclusive property of the big families and vassals. However, flying mounts were different. If they could kill Wang Sheng, the benefits were real. However, if they killed Wang Sheng, they would definitely offend the big vassals, so they had no choice but to reconsider. On one hand, there was the temptation of flying mounts, and, on the other hand, there was the pressure of the big vassals. It was really a dilemma for them. Of course, Wang Sheng had also heard about this. He, Aki, and old Taoist Ling Su were now on their way to the land of thousand extremities. Since Baoqing Yuhal, was able to attack the Qiu Kingdom's base in the land of 1,000 extremities, they must have a lot of experts inside. Wang Sheng wanted to go in and see if this force, which made all the major forces uneasy, was still inside. In the mountains, there was nothing Wang Sheng could do about the flying beasts. However, in the land of 1,000 extremities, he had the combat awareness and the help of the little man. Wang Sheng could easily take down any flying mount that came. Another reason was that the land of 1,000 extremities was actually the safest place for Wang Sheng. No matter which faction it was, they could forget about taking advantage of Wang Sheng in the lands of 1,000 despair. Bao Qin Yutang had suddenly appeared, and with such a powerful force at that, all parties would definitely have all kinds of thoughts. Before there was a conclusion on how to deal with Bao Qin Yutang, Wang Sheng would not appear. This would also give all parties time to weigh their options. Once everything was settled, Wang Sheng could appear again. At that time, it would be clear whether he was a friend or foe. Speaking of which, Bao Qin Yutang, Wang Sheng, and the Qiu family were direct enemies. Now, there might also be the Xia family that had been fooled around. The attitude of the other parties still needed to be analyzed. At this time, if Wang Sheng were to appear in front of all parties, he would definitely bear the brunt of the attack. Even persimmons would pick the soft ones to pinch. Wang Sheng would not do such a stupid thing. The pressure would first be borne by the Qiu and Xia family. Since Wang Sheng was not in the capital, Mayor would most likely be Bao Qin Yutang's target. However, if something happened to Mayor in the capital under the care of the Imperial Laojun Temple and the Linglong Pavilion, it would be a joke. Old Taoist, do you think this stupid move was really done by owner Zhu of the Bao Qin Yutang? Wang Sheng chatted with Old Taoist Ling Su as they walked. Aki followed them silently, not saying a word. Why do you think this is a stupid move? Old Taoist Ling Su asked Wang Sheng. Maybe someone will be tempted. If he really wants my life, I'm afraid these 5 flying mounts are not enough. Wang Sheng smiled and said, if he really hates me to the core, he should be willing to bet everything on me. However, although the reward is tempting, I'm afraid it's not enough to tempt those who are hesitating. This is not the way an old profiteer who has been doing business all his life would do. Old Taoist Ling Su and Aki did not say anything. When it came to business matters, they might not be able to understand what Wang Sheng meant. It's like fighting. Wang Sheng quickly changed the way he phrased it. If you are strong enough, when facing an enemy, will you give it your all? Or do you feel that you can defeat them with just 30% of your strength? Is that why you only use 30% of your strength and are reluctant to use anymore? This time, the old Taoist and Aki understood. Bao Qin Yutang had enough bargaining chips, but he was reluctant to take out more of the reward for Wang Sheng. As a result, those who were envious after hearing these conditions would have to weigh whether it was worth it. It might be worth it, but if the gains and risks were about the same, no one would be willing to take the risk. If it's not Zhu Xingxing, who else could it be? When it came to doing business, not to mention old Taoist Ling Su, even the old Taoist and Aki multiplied 10 times would not be a match for Wang Sheng. Therefore, when it came to business judgment, the old Taoist completely believed in what Wang Sheng said. At this moment, he was also a little puzzled. This is clearly a decision made by someone who is not broad-minded enough, doesn't do things in a magnanimous manner, and bears a grudge over the slightest matter. Wang Sheng expressed his own judgment. Say, among the Bao Qin Yutang, who do you think has such a character and power? In any case, it's definitely not the previous boss. Aki and the old Taoist could not think of anyone. The old Taoist did not speak, and this time, it was Aki's turn to speak. Last time, Mei said that young Master Zhu died in the place where he was placed under house arrest. Have you heard of this news? Wang Sheng asked. He already had a vague suspicion in his heart, but he still needed to verify it. I've heard of it. When Aki was in Carefree City, she was sometimes in charge of gathering information for Wang Sheng. Of course, she had heard of this news. Basically, she would pay attention to anything related to Wang Sheng. Then this news was released by the Bao Qin Yutang, or by someone else. Wang Sheng asked again, has anyone said that they have seen Zhu Xiaodong's corpse? No. Aki directly shook her head. Since Wang Sheng had already made it so clear, how could Aki not understand Wang Sheng's meaning? Duke, what you mean is that Zhu Xiaodong is not dead at all, and it was old Master Zhu who released the news? If no one has seen Zhu Xiaodong's corpse, then I'm afraid that's the case. Wang Sheng sneered and said, to be able to play such a bad hand, I'm afraid that only Zhu Xiaodong, who has great ambition but little talent, could do such a thing. You tell me, why did he kill so many people from the vassal states when he was targeting the Qiu state and me? To show his strength? Or to provoke? Chapter 952. The news said that old master Zhu personally ended Zhu Xiaodong's life, and then endured the humiliation to run Bao Qingyu Hall. Obviously, that was just a facade. Even a vicious tiger would not eat its cubs. Zhu Xingxing had an only son at such an old age. Would he really be willing to kill his only child? This was Wang Sheng's suspicion, but he had never mentioned it before. Now that he saw the so-called Shangyue Kingdom's behavior, Wang Sheng started to have doubts from the beginning. If old Master Zhu was really in charge, he would not be so narrow-minded. A person who could manage Bao Qing Yutang all over the country would not think so simply. Not to mention Zhu Xingxing. Even if it was Wang Sheng, if he really wanted to do such a thing, he would at least increase the reward by 10 times. If he really wanted to do it, he would let all the people who could do it. This was the method of using an iron hammer to smash a nail. Continuously investing a little bit and consuming a little bit would just be sending food to Wang Sheng. In addition, as Wang Sheng had said, they had made too many enemies. Although all the families wanted to enter the Shangyue Kingdom to take advantage of it, this was not a problem that could be solved by catching them all in one go. Even Wang Sheng's ancestors from 2,000 years ago on Earth knew that befriending the distant and attacking the nearby, defeating them one by one. Was the head of Bao Qingyu Hall stupid enough to offend all the vassal states? Only those short-sighted people who didn't see the big picture, who only cared about their emotions and gains and losses, and who only cared about the benefits in front of them, would make such a brainless decision. At this time, shouldn't they show their powerful strength and let all the people retreat in the face of difficulties? Then they could focus on dealing with Wang Sheng and Qiu first, and think about other things after that. Putting aside the fact that China was coveting their territory, manpower, and interests, all of the vassal states, big and small, were on guard against the schemes of others while plotting against them. However, on the surface, everyone still had to maintain a rhythm of peace. There had never been a fool who would suddenly jump out and provoke everyone, no matter how he thought about it. Wang Sheng couldn't think of anyone other than Zhu Xiaodong, who was said to be dead. Who else could make such an outrageous decision? Although Wang Sheng said that he wanted to enter the land of thousand despair to avoid disaster, he actually wanted to see the reactions of all parties. Without Wang Sheng as a target, how would the various parties deal with the Shangyue Kingdom that suddenly popped up? Do you think some vassal states will jump out to kill you? Aki was just an assassin. She was not good at this level of consideration. She could only ask Wang Sheng with some worry. Although the old Taoist did not speak, he was obviously concerned. When Aki asked, he also pricked up his ears and waited for Wang Sheng's answer. Don't worry, the vassal states definitely won't jump out. Wang Sheng first gave the two a reassuring answer. Tianzi will definitely bide his time and wait patiently. Wait for what? Aki asked, following up on Wang Sheng's words. Wait for those small vassal states that can't resist the temptation to jump out. Wang Sheng replied with a chuckle. If I don't show myself, there will always be people who can't resist the temptation and try every possible way to find out where I am. What will happen if they jump out? Aki asked. They'll follow in the footsteps of victorious return, Wang Sheng said with a smile. What? Aki jumped in fright. Why did the destruction of a country suddenly come into play? Even the old Taoist Ling Su didn't understand. His eyes widened as he waited for Wang Sheng to explain. First of all, Bao Qing Yutang's foolish move has already offended all the major vassal states. Wang Sheng analyzed the situation as he walked. Right now, he's only keeping his composure and accumulating strength to deal a thunderous blow to the Shanghai kingdom, just like how the three vassal states dealt with victorious return. However, before that, if there are still some small vassal states that don't know what's good for them and jump out, they'll be disrespectful to the emperor. We'll take care of them as well. Wang Sheng was afraid that the two of them wouldn't understand, so he explained, who would complain about having too many spoils of war and too much territory? But why would that be disrespectful to the emperor? Aki still couldn't understand. Because the emperor didn't accept the so-called Shanghai kingdom. Wang Sheng replied with a smile. Along the way, we only heard that the representative of the Shanghai kingdom wanted to pay a visit to the emperor, but we didn't hear anything about the emperor, right? The problem isn't Bao Qing Yu Tang's request to be in theft a great merit for expanding our territory? Aki's political awareness wasn't as high as her talent as an assassin. She still looked at the problem in a simple manner. Why wouldn't the emperor acknowledge such a merit? Doesn't the emperor want to include the Shanghai kingdom in his territory? Expanding our territory is a good thing, but it's clearly not for the emperor. It's for Zhu Xingxing himself. The old Taoist understood this aspect better than Aki. After all, he had lived in the capital for so many years. Even if he hadn't eaten pork, he had seen pigs run. He explained on behalf of Wang Sheng with a smile. Not to mention, it's not easy for the emperor to balance out the vassal states. If another one were to suddenly appear, wouldn't it be unbalanced again? That's right. Wang Sheng smiled and continued. Why would the emperor acknowledge and accept them? If the so-called Shanghai kingdom is divided up by the various parties, wouldn't it be easy to incorporate the territory of the Shanghai kingdom into the kingdom's territory without paying any price? It's still the same as expanding our territory. In other words, the major vassal states are already preparing to divide up the Shanghai kingdom. At this time, it's just a matter of who's blind enough to jump out and take care of a few more. Aki finally understood and summarized in her own words. That's right. Wang Sheng smiled and said affirmatively, I just don't know how angry old Master Zhu is now. If this decision is really made by his useless son, I'm sure old Master Zhu will have a headache. Slap. Just as Wang Sheng and old Taoist Aki said so, in a city in Shanghai Kingdom, old Master Zhu of Bao Qing Yu Tang had already slapped the face of a young man in front of him. Stupid. Old Master Zhu was furious. The slap was not enough to vent his anger. He scolded, You've just gained some strength, and you've already offended all the forces that you can. You're really my good son. I just want to kill that Wang Sheng. The young man who was slapped was, as Wang Sheng had guessed, Zhu Xiaodong, who was said to be dead. At this moment, Zhu Xiaodong covered his face and explained with a wronged expression. Kill Wang Sheng. Not a bad idea. Old Master Zhu laughed. He turned around and paused for a moment, then suddenly turned back and slapped the other side of Zhu Xiaodong's face. He directly slapped Zhu Xiaodong to the ground and angrily roared, What about Wang Sheng? The person you want to kill is living freely in the Tang Kingdom, but you killed all the people sent by the other families. Is this how you want to kill Wang Sheng? Chapter 9:53. How did Wang Sheng escape from your inescapable net? Zhu Xingxing had just returned and did not know what had happened, so he could only ask Zhu Xiaodong, who knew the most. It is said that he flew out. Zhu Xiaodong himself could not believe the report from his subordinates, but the barbarian experts all vowed, so he had no choice but to believe it. When Zhu Xingxing asked, he could only answer the same. Slap. Another heavy slap landed on Zhu Xiaodong's face again. Do you think I'm a fool? Zhu Xingxing was furious and was about to go crazy. This unfilial son, even at this time, he still wanted to deceive him. They really flew away. Zhu Xiaodong said with a sad face, almost crying, If you don't believe me, you can ask those experts who chased after them. They really flew away. Really? Zhu Xingxing looked at Zhu Xiaodong's expression and did not seem to be lying, so he asked in disbelief. It's absolutely true. Zhu Xiaodong hurriedly followed his subordinates and solemnly vowed. Zhu Xingxing frowned and immediately ordered people to call over a few experts who had participated in the pursuit of Wang Sheng and asked them in detail. This question made Zhu Xingxing dumbfounded. Wang Sheng and the other two really flew away. But no matter how the barbarian experts described, Zhu Xingxing and Zhu Xiaodong could not imagine how Wang Sheng and the other two flew away. They only knew that they ran to a cliff, then hung on a triangular thing and flew away. How is this possible? Zhu Xingxing could be said to be an old fox who had lived for a lifetime. He was experienced and knowledgeable. What strange things had he not seen? But how Wang Sheng and the other two flew away, he could not figure it out no matter how hard he thought. Until now, the barbarian experts were terrified when they talked about Wang Sheng and the other two. People who could fly, could they be gods? Finally, Zhu Xiaodong did the right thing. He gathered the experts who saw Wang Sheng and the other two in time and did not let them come into contact with other barbarians. Otherwise, he did not know how the news would spread. When Zhu Xingxing heard about the loss of a flying mount and 5 experts, he immediately sensed an intense premonition of danger. If he were to fight against Wang Sheng with a flying mount, he would no longer have an advantage in the air. Since that was the case, he might as well go with the flow. Zhu Xingxing, who was previously busy with something, had no choice but to bite the bullet and clean up Zhu Xiaodong's mess after Zhu Xiaodong made another mistake. Before Wang Sheng entered the grounds of Thousand Despair 3 days later, he heard about Baoqing Yutang's new bargaining chip in the city closest to the grounds of Thousand Despair in the Tang Empire. The bounty for Wang Sheng was still the same, and there were still 5 flying mounts. However, this time, there were 5 more beast tamers and 10 flying demonic beast eggs, which could be used to raise a flying mount from a young age. This time, it was equivalent to doubling the original chips at the very least. After all, a flying demonic beast raised by one's own people from a young age was far more reassuring than someone else taming it. Who knew if a mature flying demonic beast had been specially trained to perform some unknown actions? If it were to be used and fell from such a high altitude, it would be a miracle if its corpse was left intact. The 10 flying demonic beast eggs had increased the value of the bounty by several folds. There were already many people who were tempted. However, this was not the most ruthless thing. The most ruthless thing was that Baoqing Yutang was willing to offer the method of capturing and taming the flying demonic beast, the method of raising it from a young age to an adult, and the method of feeding it. The method of capturing, feeding, and taming was the most ruthless. This was equivalent to teaching someone how to fish. In the future, Baoqing Yutang would no longer be in control of his life. Moreover, if he had this method and others didn't, in Wang Sheng's words, this was the difference between having air supremacy and not having it. The strategic advantage could be said to be overwhelming. After hearing this news, Wang Sheng said nothing and immediately left with Aki and old Taoist Ling Su. With such a huge chip, not to mention the small vassal states, even the 8 major vassal states and the emperor would be tempted. This was the Tang Empire's territory. If the Tang family was tempted, Wang Sheng wouldn't be able to leave even if he wanted to. Fortunately, it seemed that the Tang Emperor's plan had not spread to this city near the grounds of Thousand Despair. Wang Sheng and the other 2 left calmly. Not far ahead was the grounds of Thousand Despair. By the time the Tang family's experts in the city gathered and hurried out of the city, the 3 of them had already stepped into the edge of the grounds of Thousand Despair. Although there were at least 100 experts chasing after them, when they saw that Wang Sheng and the other 2 had already entered the grounds of Thousand Despair, even if they had 10 times the number of people and 10 times the courage, they still wouldn't dare to chase after them. In the grounds of Thousand Despair, Wang Sheng was the absolute victor. Even the old Taoist wouldn't dare to say that he could deal with Wang Sheng in the grounds of Thousand Despair. At the edge of the grounds of Thousand Despair, Wang Sheng looked at the helpless Tang family expert from afar. He sneered, turned around, and walked towards the depths of the grounds of Thousand Despair. Duke Changsheng, we absolutely mean no harm. The leader of the Tang family city lord immediately realized that something was wrong. He hurriedly shouted at Wang Sheng from afar with his loudest voice. "We just heard that Duke Changsheng has come to the city, so we specially invited Duke Changsheng to be our guest. Please don't misunderstand." What a joke. If he didn't even say this, wouldn't it mean that he had tacitly admitted that he was here to kill Wang Sheng? Bao Qing Yutang had killed hundreds of the Qiu family's elite disciples in the grounds of Thousand Despair, greatly damaging the Qiu family's strength. However, if it had been Wang Sheng, none of the Qiu family members in the grounds of Thousand Despair would have survived. On this point, the Dai family had already verified it for them. On the Tang family's side, the city lord of Border City had suddenly been tempted. He thought that he could take advantage of Wang Sheng when he was alone. However, seeing that Wang Sheng had entered the grounds of Thousand Despair, if Wang Sheng were to vent his anger on the Tang family's disciples in the grounds of Thousand Despair, even if he had 100 heads, it wouldn't be enough for the Tang family's patriarch to chop off. How many experts had he dispatched today? It was estimated that the heads of his entire family, old and young, would be sent to Duke Changsheng's residence in the capital. A single slip may cause everlasting sorrow. The city lord wished that he could slap himself a few hundred times. What's wrong with me? The patriarch hasn't made a decision yet. How could I be so audacious as to dispatch experts to deal with Wang Sheng? That's right, the reward offered by Bao Qing Yutang was too tempting. Even the city lord of Tang family had lost his ability to think calmly. I still have matters to attend to. Wang Sheng's voice came from afar. His voice wasn't loud, but it was exceptionally clear, shocking everyone with his cultivation. I won't bother with you for now. If there's any misunderstanding, you can personally go to Duke Changsheng's residence and find Steward Wang to explain. Many thanks, Duke Changsheng. Many thanks, Duke Changsheng. Hearing Wang Sheng's words, the city lord wasn't angry. Instead, he was overjoyed. He rushed towards Wang Sheng's group and cheered loudly, almost crying tears of joy. Chapter 9:54. It was just a small Tang Kingdom's castellan. There was no need for Mei to step in. Steward Wang was enough. Both Wang Sheng and Aki heaved a sigh of relief when they entered the grounds of Thousand Devastations. Old Taoist Ling Su's expression was still indifferent. However, Wang Sheng could tell from his relaxed expression that the old Taoist was much more relaxed. After all, he had to protect two people. Under the situation of facing so many experts outside, the old Taoist was also under pressure. It was not that he could not defeat them, but he was afraid that Wang Sheng and Aki would be hurt. Once they entered the grounds of Thousand Devastations, no matter who they were, they would have the ability to survive alone. They would no longer have to worry about being ambushed. "Where are we going now?" Aki asked out of curiosity. "To the Laojun Taoist temple's base." Wang Sheng did not mind Aki talking too much. He replied and added, "It's the place where you ambushed me and Mei the underground palace." When she heard Wang Sheng talk about how she was bent on killing Wang Sheng, Aki looked a little embarrassed. She playfully stuck out her tongue behind Wang Sheng's back and did not ask any more questions. However, this action was seen by old Taoist Ling Su and made Aki blush. The old Taoist had been away from the grounds of Thousand Devastations for some time and was concerned about the situation in the underground palace. Wang Sheng's plan was exactly what he wanted, so he did not object to it at all. The three of them got their bearings in the grounds of Thousand Devastations and headed straight for the underground palace without any intention of taking a detour. This was the first time Wang Sheng had entered the grounds of Thousand Devastations since he started cultivating again. However, this time was different from the previous times. Wang Sheng's 9 syllables formula had reached the level of the 5 syllables formula. In the past, Wang Sheng would either take a detour or ask the old Taoist Ling Su to deal with powerful monsters from afar. But it was different now. It was completely different. With the 5 syllables formula, no matter how powerful the monsters outside the grounds of Thousand Devastations were, they would still leave obediently. This discovery made Wang Sheng even more confident. Since he could command 6-star and above monsters from miles away, it should not be a problem for him to control a legendary realm monster in the core of the grounds of Thousand Devastations, right? Previously, he was already able to control a legendary giant bear. This time, he had improved even further. Even if he didn't need to control a stronger demonic beast, as long as it was of the same level, it would be fine. If a legendary realm, flying demon beast from the core region of the land of 1,000 extremities came and controlled it as a mount, then all the flying mounts owned by Bao Qingyu Hall would instantly become a joke. If he could control a legendary realm, flying monster in the core of the grounds of 1,000 devastations as a mount, the success rate of Bao Qingyu Tang's flying mounts would be greatly increased. To be on the safe side, it was better not to be so optimistic. If Wang Sheng could make use of this period of time in the grounds of Thousand Despair to raise his cultivation to the 8th stage and complete the venomous viper transformation, the success rate should be much higher. Traveling through the lands of Thousand Despair was very slow. It took them more than 10 days to reach the underground palace. The moment they saw the two most senior members of the old Supreme Lord Temple, all the Taoist priests came out to welcome them. Aki could not believe how respectful they were. Wang Sheng and the other two finally had a good rest in the underground palace for a day and a night, relieving the tiredness of the past few days. Even in the grounds of 1,000 devastations, no one dared to provoke the people of the old Supreme Lord Temple. The outer walls of the camp had been expanded. Usually, there would be thousands of people stationed here. Every month, there would be at least 100 people traveling between the old Supreme Lord Temple and the underground palace, transporting supplies and cultivating at the same time. This was the suggestion that Wang Sheng gave them when they came out of the core of the grounds of 1,000 devastations. It was basically the same principle. Don't stay in a place with a high concentration of spiritual energy for too long. Just get used to it and return to your normal state. Staying in the grounds of 1,000 devastations for a short period of time was more effective and beneficial to the body. Currently, only the old Supreme Lord Temple did such a rotation. The other families basically sent their elite disciples in and had to experience at least one breakthrough before leaving. The old Taoist began to guide the disciples in their cultivation. Wang Sheng and Aki could be considered to have nothing to do for the time being. They found a room to stay in and cultivated while waiting. Why do we come to the grounds of 1,000 devastations? To avoid trouble? Aki could not understand why Wang Sheng would hide in the grounds of 1,000 devastations immediately after hearing that Bao Qingyu Tang had increased the bounty. Along the way, she did not ask. Now that they had settled down, she could not help but ask. Avoid trouble? You can say that. Wang Sheng smiled and did not deny it. Looking at Aki's seemingly disdainful expression, he smiled and asked, "Tell me, who do you think Bao Qingyu Tang hates the most? Or rather, who hates Bao Qingyu Tang the most?" Considering the recent events, the one who hated Bao Qingyu Tang the most would definitely be the Qiu Kingdom. Bao Qingyu Tang had attacked their base in the grounds of 1,000 devastations and attacked a city within their borders. The total number of casualties had already exceeded 1,000. How could the Qiu clan not hate Bao Qingyu Tang? The second person who hated Bao Qingyu Tang was definitely not Wang Sheng, but the Xia Kingdom. Not to mention that Bao Qingyu Tang had made a fool out of the Xia Kingdom. They had lost over 300 disciples not long ago. With so many lives lost, how could the Xia Kingdom let go of Bao Qingyu Tang so easily? When Qi gave the answer, Wang Shengkai smiled again and said, "Since you also understand that there are two vassal states that hate Bao Qingyu Hall, then why should we stand at the forefront and help them charge and break through the enemy lines?" In fact, Aki had already thought it through when she gave her answer. Now that she heard Wang Sheng's explanation, she stuck out her tongue at Wang Sheng in embarrassment and obediently went back to her cultivation. Just as Wang Sheng had said, since the Qiu clan and the Xia clan would definitely go against Bao Qingyu Tang, Wang Sheng did not need to be the vanguard for them. No matter how high the bounty on Bao Qingyu Tang's head was, it was completely meaningless to Wang Sheng, who had entered the ground of 1,000 despair. Could it be that the Qiu clan and the Xia clan would endure until Bao Qingyu Tang successfully placed a bounty on Wang Sheng before they made their move? This was completely Wang Sheng's strategy of retreating in order to advance to deal with the myriad of changes by remaining unchanged, staying in the ground of thousand despair, sitting on the mountain and watching the tigers fight, reaping the fruits of others' labor. As an ace sniper, if he discovered that the enemy had a rival that could help him kill the enemy, he would be a fool if he still foolishly rushed to the forefront at this time. Staying in the ground of thousand despair was indeed faster than cultivating in the outside world. At the very least, Wang Sheng could clearly feel that every time he cultivated, there would be a large drop of spiritual liquid in the big pool in his soul space. Although it was not as much as when he refined his body with spiritual energy, it was still at least twice as fast as when he cultivated in the capital city. Seeing that the transformation of the flying serpent soul had become even faster, Wang Sheng could no longer sit still after staying in a state of isolation for half a month. He called out to old Taoist Ling Su and wanted to enter the core area of the ground of thousand despair to take a look. Chapter 955. You're going alone? The old Taoist could not help but frown when he heard that Wang Sheng wanted to enter the core of the land of thousand despair. His frown deepened when Wang Sheng said that he wanted to go alone. I want to go too. Although they had been cultivating separately for the past few days, Aki had been staying with Wang Sheng. Even though nothing had happened between the two of them, the disciple who arranged the rooms had taken the initiative to arrange a room for the two of them. When Wang Sheng mentioned this, Aki immediately chimed in. You can't do it. This time, it was not Wang Sheng who spoke. Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su spoke in unison. What? Aki glared at him with a wronged look on her face. Because you're not strong enough. Wang Sheng put on a straight face and explained sternly. You won't even last a day in there. I can escape on my own, but I can't protect you. This was the truth. Aki could not refute it even if she wanted to. She could only look at old Taoist Ling Su for help. Don't look at me. The old Taoist directly pushed the blame to her. He won't even let me in now. He wants to go alone. I want to go deeper in and take a look. Wang Sheng did not hide his destination in the slightest. Facing old Taoist Ling Su and Achi, there was nothing for him to hide. My low cultivation is actually an advantage. If you go in and aren't careful, I'm afraid you might cause a riot in the core region. Old Taoist Ling Su had entered the core area before. Of course, he knew what would happen if his aura was released. The periphery of the core area was fine. The old Taoist was absolutely confident that he could suppress the monsters. However, the old Taoist was not confident in the innermost core area. It was not that the old Taoist was worried about Wang Sheng's safety. It would be better for Wang Sheng to enter the core area alone. However, he did not know what Wang Sheng was thinking. Why did he suddenly want to enter? My cultivation. Wang Sheng did not hide it and directly stated his considerations. Although the Black Viper transformation relied on the accumulation of spirit energy, Wang Sheng's soul transformation was still within the scope of the dragon's 9 sons. The Black Viper's love for water would not change. Originally, Wang Sheng had planned to find a big lake or go to the seaside to cultivate after going to the mountainous area. However, with Bao Qing Yutang's actions, Wang Sheng could only sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. It would not be good for him to go out and stir up trouble in the land of thousand extremes and focus the conflict on himself. He could also take advantage of the time when Chiu State and Xia State were dealing with Bao Qing Yutang to cultivate. There was also a small lake in the land of thousand extremes. However, no matter how much Wang Sheng thought about it, no matter how powerful the lake was, could it be compared to the huge glacier in the core area of the land of thousand extremes? Although ice was solid, wasn't there an old saying that ice was made of water and was colder than water? Wasn't such a large glacier made of ice water? Another small reason was that Wang Sheng wanted to see the progress of the Shi clan and Gan clan's excavation of the peerless treasures. They had been in there for more than a year and a half. Shouldn't they have dug out a part of the treasures? The old Taoist stared at Wang Sheng for a long time before he asked solemnly, Can you guarantee that you will come out safely? Don't worry. Wang Sheng knew that the old Taoist was worried about his safety. He was very touched and gave the old Taoist a smile. Aki, who was beside him, naturally had nothing to say after seeing that even the old Taoist had agreed. She only looked at Wang Sheng reluctantly. Only now did she realize that even if she followed Wang Sheng and was chased by others, she could still live an extremely exciting life. She was already used to living with Wang Sheng. When Wang Sheng held her hand and ran away, or when they encountered some small dangers, Wang Sheng would be in front of them. Aki was very reluctant to part with him suddenly. "Don't worry and stay here," Wang Sheng smiled and said to Aki in a half-commanding and half-reminding manner. Aki pouted and nodded obediently. Seeing her actions, Wang Sheng was also very happy. These days, Aki would occasionally stick out her tongue and make funny faces. Coupled with her pouted mouth now, this was the lively and cute expression that a young girl should have. In the past, Aki was too cold, too much like a professional killer. Sometimes, it was not a good thing to show one's profession on one's face. After dealing with the old Taoist and Aki, Wang Sheng brought a batch of supplies from the underground palace and directly set foot on the road to the core area of the grounds of Thousand Despair. As for what was happening outside, Wang Shenkai didn't care. As for the powers outside, they only needed to know one thing. Don't even think about finding trouble with Wang Sheng in the grounds of Thousand Extremities. Even if there were 10,000 flying demonic beast mounts as a reward, how many people would be able to find Wang Sheng's head hidden in the grounds of Thousand Extremities? And how many people would have the life to claim it? In the lands of 1,000 extremities, Wang Sheng could be said to be swaggering about. Be it birds, beasts, or insects, whether they were flying in the sky, walking on the ground, or swimming in the water, wherever Wang Sheng passed, they would all retreat. Even if there were occasionally a few experts who dared to train in the outer area of the grounds of Thousand Despair, when they saw the movements in Wang Sheng's direction from afar, they immediately ran away as far as they could without a second thought. Anyone who saw an overwhelming swarm of man-eating ants that covered an area of 10 miles would definitely be a hero among heroes. A hero among heroes. Of course, those who remained would be skeletons among skeletons, without the slightest bit of skin or flesh. Not even skeletons will be left behind. Under the huge bite force of those man-eating ants, what kind of bones could withstand it? They could only treat it as a calcium supplement for the man-eating ants. With the man-eating ants clearing the way, Wang Sheng rushed to the edge of the grounds of Thousand Despair in a domineering manner. Along the way, he passed by a few bases built by the vassal states. When he passed by, the experts in each of the bases all looked at the huge swarm of man-eating ants protecting Wang Sheng in a daze. Not to mention speaking loudly. Even their breathing was very careful, for fear that the sound of their breathing would provoke the swarm of ants. Those who were more courageous still dared to take a look, while those who were less courageous had already hid in the innermost part of the base, trembling in fear. In the past, the experts of the vassal states had only heard that Wang Sheng was able to command the man-eating ants in the grounds of Thousand Despair. They felt that it was only because he had the support of some demonic beasts and could not be considered to have any real ability. Moreover, it was just a mere group of man-eating ants. As long as they ran a little faster, what could they do to an expert? However, when the swarm of man-eating ants was right in front of them, they realized how laughable it was for them to think that they were experts who could move freely in the grounds of Thousand Despair. That was because Wang Sheng had nodded his head. If Wang Sheng had not nodded his head, they would definitely have died without a burial ground, turning into piles of ant feces. Compete with Wang Sheng in the grounds of Thousand Despair? Assassinate Wang Sheng in the grounds of Thousand Despair and claim a bounty? Toss that thought as far as it could. Just a single tour of the man-eating ants had caused all the experts of the vassal states in this direction to have a new understanding of Wang Sheng. After Wang Sheng left, all the experts hurriedly thought of ways to inform their patriarchs, telling them not to be dazzled by the mere bounty offered by Bao Qing Yutang. It was not worth it. Chapter 956. Many years later, there were still people who could not forget the scene they saw back then. The man-eating ants blotted out the sky and covered the earth as they passed by in a grandiose manner. It became an eternal nightmare for them. Many years later, when these people talked to their descendants about their experiences in the ground of despair, the most common question they encountered was what kind of demonic beast was the most terrifying in the ground of despair. In the minds of their descendants, it must be a legendary demonic beast or an unbelievably huge and terrifying demonic beast. In the end, when their grandparents heard their answers, they all shook their heads. The most terrifying demonic beast was a one-star demonic beast the size of a finger. This was their own answer. Then, they fell into a terrifying memory. How was that possible? Every time this answer came out, it would cause a group of juniors to exclaim in surprise. Then, they would constantly ask what the most terrifying one-star demonic beast was. The answer was the endless number of man-eating ants in front of them. No matter how strong the demonic beast was, even if it had a super thick armor that a legendary expert could not break, it was not much harder than a piece of paper in front of the powerful teeth and super strong formic acid of the man-eating ants. It was just a matter of breaking a few layers of paper. In fact, not to mention a few layers, even if there were dozens or hundreds of layers, it would not be a problem in front of hundreds of millions of man-eating ants that cover an area of 10 miles. This experience would be remembered by everyone who had seen this scene for the rest of their lives. Wang Sheng did not pay attention to the people along the way, unless someone really did not have eyes and jumped out to block the way. However, even if there was such a person, Wang Sheng would not be able to see him. Wang Sheng was at the center of the ant colony. Wang Sheng only controlled the ant colony to move forward, avoiding those bases. Even if there were people in front of him, those who dared to show off from 5 miles away would be killed by the ant colony. Wang Sheng would not even be able to see them. Wang Sheng swaggered all the way to the edge of the core of the ground of despair. Only then did he control the ant colony to patrol along the edge. Wang Sheng wanted to go in alone. He did not want anyone to go in and cause trouble. If he encountered any living things along the way, he would kill them without mercy. Wang Sheng descended into the snow basin from the edge of the mountain forest. He looked at the flat, snow-covered ground and sensed that there was no one around. Then he took out the parts forged by Elder Tai and the other great grandmaster from his storage ring and assembled them. This time, Wang Sheng assembled a sled. There were 2 skateboards at the front and a wide caterpillar track at the back. The tracks were all made of metal and detachable. They were made to be relatively thin, but strong enough. The surface area was also large enough. Even with the weight of Wang Sheng and a batch of supplies, it would not sink to the bottom of the snow. The engine was still based on the principles of the formation. Wang Sheng's own spirit chi would drive the formation to rotate and then drive the tracks forward. Because it only needed a space to install a rotatable formation stone, there was no need for fuel. The entire sled weighed less than 25 kilograms. The components were not big. The formation stone, 2 skateboards, a steering handle, a seat, a pair of caterpillar tracks, a frame, and a driving ratchet could all fit in Wang Sheng's other storage ring. For Wang Sheng, who had manually assembled tank tracks, it was very easy to assemble and disassemble with his current strength. It was very convenient. All the supplies were in Wang Sheng's storage ring. Wang Sheng did not need to worry about the weight at all. As long as Wang Sheng had enough spiritual energy, he could drive this sled to any place in the glacier basin. The terrain here was too flat. Apart from some icebergs that were obviously formed for some unknown reason, everything else was flat. The ground was covered with ice and snow. If they walked on foot, they would often sink into the waist-deep snow. Their speed wouldn't be much faster. Even with old Taoist Ling Su, Wang Sheng and Wang Sheng's speed last time was less than 5 kilometers per hour. It was slower than a normal person walking on flat ground. It was easy for a single skateboard to sink. Now that they had this sled, they did not need to worry about sinking into the snow. Wang Sheng drove the sled with spiritual energy. Just by comparing the scenery, Wang Sheng estimated that it could reach a speed of at least 30 kilometers per hour. This was several times faster than walking. The entire ice and snow basin was no more than 200 kilometers in circumference. Wangsheng did not have to worry about the demon beasts and drove straight ahead. In less than a day, they could reach the core area of the Land of Thousand Despair. With the magical sled in hand, Wangsheng was not in a hurry. In addition, the old Taoist had warned him not to rush into the central area. So, it only took Wangsheng half an hour to put away all the accessories. Then, he set up 3 layers of thermal concealment tents. After making all the necessary protection, he used the 5-word formula to drive away all the demon beasts in the surroundings. After that, Wangsheng began to cultivate. As soon as he entered the state of cultivation, Wangsheng found that his guess was correct. Countless spiritual energy with a trace of cool air gathered from the surroundings and entered his body and the space of his soul. Then it gathered into liquid drops and dripped into the big pool. Every weekday, Wangsheng could gather a ball of spiritual liquid that was at least a few times more than when he cultivated outside. Just this filling speed alone was equivalent to increasing the speed of Wangsheng's cultivation by a few times. The swallowing speed of the venomous snake soul had also increased. With every swallow, the color of its body would increase by a few times. Similarly, it was also a few times more than when he cultivated outside. Now, the latter half of his body had almost completely solidified. Based on this speed, it would take at most a month for Wangsheng to achieve a breakthrough in his cultivation here. Being in the core area of the Land of Thousand Despair, of course, Wangsheng had to be very careful. He would cultivate for a maximum of 9 weekdays at a time. After 20 minutes, he would stop and continue to use the 5-word formula to drive away the demon beasts while maintaining sufficient vigilance. Although there was no danger from the demon beasts, who knew if there would be people inside? However, in this area, there had not been anyone who could get close to Wangsheng within 20 minutes of Wangsheng's sight, smell, and hearing. As long as Wangsheng maintained sufficient vigilance, he would be able to avoid any danger. To be able to live like Wangsheng in this area alone, it could be considered as the only one. In this world, only Wangsheng could do this. He could still be so carefree in the core area of the Land of Thousand Despair, which other experts did not enter this area as if they were facing a great enemy. Every day, they would be exhausted to the point of becoming a pile of mud. Only Wangsheng could still be so lively. On the first day of cultivation, Wangsheng only felt a trace of cold air in the spiritual energy. There was nothing special about it. However, when Wangsheng advanced another 15 kilometers on the second day and continued to cultivate, Wangsheng felt a completely different feeling from the periphery area. Every mouthful of spiritual energy that was absorbed into his body and rushed into the soul origin space was not just a trace of cold air, but a bone-chilling cold. Even after a ball of spiritual liquid entered the big pool, Wangsheng could feel that the spiritual liquid in the big pool had become ice cold. Chapter 9:57. This was a feeling he had never experienced before. For Wangsheng, it was a complete reversal of his understanding. Whether it was from the advice of a super expert like old Taoist Ling Su, or from the records of various cultivation books that Wangsheng had read, Wangsheng had never heard of the spiritual energy turning cold while cultivating in a land of ice and snow. If the first day Wangsheng felt a slight chill in the spiritual energy was due to psychological factors, then on the second day, the spiritual energy turning cold was definitely not due to psychological factors. What was the reason? Wangsheng could not figure out. He could not understand it. The trouble was that he was the only one here. He could not even find someone to ask for help. If he had known earlier, he would have asked old Taoist Ling Su to come along. It would have been better than letting Wangsheng fumble around alone. Wangsheng was very sure that he had never felt this way during his previous visits to the core of the Land of Thousand Despair. Even a super expert like old Taoist Ling Su did not mention anything strange about this place. He only said that the concentration of spiritual energy here was many times higher than in the outside world. That was all. However, a high concentration did not mean that the spiritual energy would turn cold. Fortunately, this feeling that Wang Sheng had was just a feeling. It did not affect his body in any way. For example, the natural trembling of his muscles due to the cold did not happen. It also did not make Wang Sheng feel that his mobility had decreased. It was different from real cold. Apart from the spiritual liquid in the big pool becoming cold, there were no other changes in the soul space. The venomous snake soul was still swallowing and spitting out the spiritual liquid in the pool. The color change on its body was obviously a little faster than yesterday. Wang Sheng had a very good memory. He could clearly remember the changes caused by each swallowing and spitting. It was indeed a little faster. In other words, the speed of his cultivation had increased, which was equivalent to double the normal cultivation speed in the outside world. In this position, Wang Sheng had to cultivate once every 2 hours. This was the maximum cultivation frequency that Wang Sheng could bear. It was all thanks to the old Taoist that Wang Sheng's foundation was extremely solid thanks to the spirit qi he had recultivated. Based on his previous cultivation level, Wang Sheng would only be able to cultivate once every 4 hours at the same level. On the third day, Wang Sheng was certain that there must have been some changes in his cultivation. The spiritual liquid that was absorbed into the large pool in his source spirit space was no longer in the form of liquid droplets. Rather, it had turned into a strange half-ice and half-water state. It was a bit like ice cream, but it was not as soft as ice cream. Rather, it was similar to the state of pure water that was beginning to freeze. The speed of absorption increased by 2 strands, but it was still lying on the edge of the pool. Wang Sheng wanted to go back and ask the old Taoist Ling Su, but in the blink of an eye, the old Taoist might not know what the situation was. Maybe this was related to his own unique source spirit. It was impossible for 100 old Taoists to know the changes. Since he was here, he should take things as they come. Since the source spirit was still cultivating and the speed was also accelerated, then there should be no problem. Why did he come here? Wasn't it to use the huge glacier as another form of water to stimulate the water-loving characteristic of the source spirit to speed up the cultivation? Now that the main purpose had been achieved, why did Wang Sheng have to make a fuss? On the fourth day, this situation was even more obvious. At this time, Wang Sheng had already penetrated 120 miles and was about to approach the core circle. He did not encounter anyone along the way. Monsters were common, but under Wang Sheng's 5-word formula, they would take the initiative to leave as long as they were a mile away. Wang Sheng only used the order to expel. He did not provoke them, nor did he try to tame them, so everything was very calm. Along the way, there were several icebergs that were obviously frozen with super monsters. Wang Sheng just went over to take a look. With his current cultivation, it would not cause a riot among the super monsters, so it was very safe. Speaking of which, several icebergs that he had passed before were all intact. It seemed that the masters from the big families who tried to come in had followed the rules and did not release the aura of the legendary peak. On the 5th day, Wang Sheng finally drove the sleigh into the core circle. As soon as he entered, Wang Sheng felt as if he suddenly had a panoramic radar. Just like in the periphery of the place of Thousand Despair, he instantly grasped everything within a 10-mile radius. At the same time, he had the ability to quickly control any monster at a close distance, just like the giant white bear last time, which could slap the legendary peak of the Sure family and Gone family back. However, Wang Sheng also became happier. Obviously, the power of the 5-word formula after Wang Sheng recultivated was getting stronger, and it was not just a simple temporary control. Previously, as long as he left this core circle, the control would fail. However, Wang Sheng now felt that even if he drove the giant bear out of this circle, he would still be able to control it. Cultivating here, Wang Sheng did not even have to carefully explore the surroundings every 20 minutes. He could easily expel stronger monsters and protect himself at the same time. When he cultivated again, Wang Sheng's spiritual energy could be considered to have undergone a complete change. Previously, it was in a semi-liquid and semi-solid state, But this time, the spiritual energy that was absorbed was not condensed into liquid droplets, but pure spiritual energy ice cubes. Not only that, all the spiritual liquid in the big pool began to freeze and form a whole block. The amazing thing was that when the newly absorbed spiritual energy ice cubes fell into the pool, the big ice cubes in the pool seemed to instantly turn into a mercury-like liquid. After swallowing the spiritual energy ice cubes, it became solid again, but there were no ripples on the flat surface. In a solid state, how could the Black Viper original soul absorb and spit spiritual energy? When Wang Sheng was puzzled, he suddenly saw the Black Viper original soul open its mouth, and then an arc-shaped icicle entered the mouth of the Black Viper from the big pool. The miraculous thing was that the Black Viper's original soul would constantly breathe in and out when it was in the form of spiritual energy or spiritual liquid. But now, after the icicle formed and entered the Black Viper's mouth, it no longer disappeared. It was as if it had become a permanent channel. Wang Sheng could even feel countless pieces of spiritual energy rushing into the Black Viper's body before being spat out. However, this process had changed from intermittent to continuous. In other words, the Black Viper original soul was no longer swallowing and spitting, but through the arc-shaped icicle, there was a continuous flow of spiritual energy ice cubes into and out of the body of the Black Viper. At every moment, the color of the body of the Black Viper was increasing. Obviously, this speed was even twice as fast as yesterday outside. Wang Sheng's hunch was right. Under the double effect of the glacier and the core of the ground 1,000 to spare, the speed of cultivation had become as fast as flying. At this speed, it would take at most half a month for Wang Sheng to reach the level of advancement. Chapter 958. Since he had already reached the core area, Wang Sheng was not in a hurry to explore further. On the one hand, he had a history of not being able to adapt to the aura if he went in too fast. He had just entered the inner circle from the outer circle, so it was better not to continue moving forward immediately. It was best to adapt for a day or two. On the other hand, Wang Sheng wanted to see what the experts of the Sure family and Gone family, who were at the peak of the legendary realm, had dug out in the past year or more, or to what extent they had progressed. After adapting to the place for 2 days, Wang Sheng began to rush in the direction of the peerless treasure. However, Wang Sheng did not take out the sleigh again. Instead, he changed to another means of transportation. It was a huge bear. It was not the one from the previous time, but it was even more terrifying. Its body was 30 meters long, and its shoulder height was more than 40 meters. Its huge claws were almost bigger than Wang Sheng's when he lay down. With the help of the battle awareness minion, Wang Sheng used the 5-word formula to easily control this huge bear from 500 meters away. Such a huge bear was simply the most suitable mount in the core circle, where the snow was as thick as a person's height. It might not be as fast as Wang Sheng's sleigh, but it was stable, safe, and effortless. The sleigh still needed Wang Sheng's continuous input of aura to move, but the giant bear did not need it at all. As long as Wang Sheng used the 5-word formula to control it, the giant bear would move forward according to the instructions. There was no need for Wang Sheng to worry about it at all. In particular, with such a huge body and powerful strength, it could almost dominate the edge of the core circle. There were no other monsters that could hurt it at all. Naturally, with its protection, Wang Sheng did not need to look around vigilantly every once in a while, which saved Wang Sheng 80% of the trouble. The huge body of the giant bear made its back very wide. Wang Sheng could easily lie down under the warm fur of the giant bear. The long white fur almost completely covered Wang Sheng's body. As long as Wang Sheng used the stealth technique and his source spirit's aura concealing technique, no one would be able to discover that there was a living person on the back of the giant bear. From a close distance, the Sure and Gone family members were not tall enough to see the people on the giant bear's back. From a distance, and from a high vantage point, he could only see the white fur of the white bear. Wang Sheng was wearing a white protective suit and was buried under his white fur. Observing from afar, Unless one had Wang Sheng's binoculars or Wang Sheng's absolute color vision, it would be impossible to tell that there was someone there. He urged the giant bear to go in the direction of the peerless treasure. The tall giant bear didn't have to worry about being stuck in the snow that was as deep as a person. It walked very easily. Wrapped in fur, Wang Sheng didn't even need to activate the protective suit's array to keep him warm. It really saved him a lot of effort. This caused Wang Sheng's laziness to flare up, and he even cultivated on the giant bear's back. As a result, every time he cultivated, he didn't have to worry about being approached by powerful monster beasts. Wang Sheng could confidently cultivate for 18 weekday or even 27 weekday at a time. Just this, his efficiency had increased by 2 to 3 times compared to before. When Wang Sheng entered his cultivation state, the giant bear seemed to feel something that made it incomparably frightened. It crawled on the ground and didn't dare to move. It didn't even dare to tremble. It could only tighten its body and try to maintain its current movements. It was afraid that Wang Sheng on its back would be disturbed by the trembling of its muscles and instantly turn into a stone statue. Unfortunately, Wang Sheng didn't see this scene. He was purely cultivating. First, it was 18 weekday at a time. After a few cultivation sessions, it became 27 weekday at a time. He enjoyed the flying speed of improvement and was simply addicted to it. However, when Wang Sheng completed the 10th cultivation session, he decisively woke up from this cultivation state. He started to use the 5 words formula on himself. The dominant one was the confrontation formula, which made his mind completely clear. Although that kind of cultivation did indeed give people an unparalleled sense of achievement and confidence, it was not the right way of cultivation. The words of old Taoist Ling Su rang in his ears again, which finally made Wang Sheng break away from that indescribable confidence in cultivation. That was close. Wang Sheng wiped the non-existent cold sweat on his forehead and said to himself with lingering fear. Fortunately, his self-control was not bad. He had a supreme 12-stage expert by his side to guide his cultivation. Otherwise, he was afraid that he would really be addicted to it. Wang Sheng still didn't know what would happen if he really indulged in that state. The old Taoist didn't say anything. He only said that it was not suitable. However, he said it was very serious and believed that he wouldn't speak carelessly. One good thing about Wang Sheng was that he believed in the opinions of experts who were better than him and listened to others' advice. I really don't know if those experts at the peak of the legend realm from the Sher family and the Gan family will be able to resist this temptation. Since he had broken away from that state in time, Wang Sheng was instead curious about how those experts from the Sher family and the Gan family would turn out. These guys had no one to remind them. Maybe they had already been addicted to this place for a year and had even forgotten to dig out the peerless treasures. Maybe they were lucky enough to discover that something was wrong. But no matter what, as long as Wang Sheng went over, he would be able to find out what was going on with them. Maybe their fate would be a warning to him. After resting on the giant bear for 2 days without doing anything, Wang Sheng controlled the giant bear to rush to the destination again. 2 days had allowed Wang Sheng's body to adapt to the spiritual pressure in the core region. It also allowed Wang Sheng to resist the temptation of crazy training. 2.5 kilometers away, Wang Sheng controlled the giant bear to stop. Climbing on the head of the giant bear, Wang Sheng held his scope and carefully looked at the area in the distance that should be the peerless treasures. Without using the scope, Wang Sheng could see that there were indeed changes over there. They were very obvious changes. Under the scope, he could see more clearly. It was no longer a flat land of ice and snow like when he first arrived. Instead, it had become an ice city mixed with mud and ice. At least they aren't stupid. They know how to build a city to keep warm and protect themselves. Wang Sheng smiled in his heart. This was not a compliment. If those 9 experts at the peak of the legend realm couldn't even think of this after living here for more than a year, then they were definitely idiots. There was a mixture of mud and ice. Obviously, they had dug under the ice. It seemed that these experts were not completely immersed in training. They still knew that they had to get down to business. There was no one in this direction. The small person with combat awareness did not sense that someone was spying on them. They should be digging underground. Wang Sheng patted the head of the giant bear and asked it to lie down carefully. Then, he quietly moved in the direction of the city. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.